We Geek podcast. Today is May 15th. We're recording it May 14th, and we're on episode 167. My name is Adam, joined as always by my good friend Logan.
Hello.
And it's been a couple weeks, man, but there is a ton to talk about. We've both seen Detective Pikachu. We both have seen Game of Thrones.
Oh, are we going to talk about Game of Thrones?
Oh, man, yes, absolutely. So, yeah, we're probably going to spend a lot of time talking about that this week. It's been big. We're coming up. It's we got, one episode left?
Yeah, next Sunday is it.
Next Sunday, and as I've said a million times before over the last... It's been a couple months now. I've just been poring over Game of Thrones stuff. So we're going to talk about... everything Game of Thrones at the end of this show.
Yeah.
And of course Detective Pikachu and what we thought of that. If we go back and listen to whatever episode it was we first started talking about Detective Pikachu, I've done such a turnaround.
I've been thinking about that like all week, like since like right before it came out, where I was like, I'm hyped for this, and then I thought back to when they first announced it, and I was like, I was so anti this so much when it was announced.
Absolutely, man. And it's one of those things where I will 100% admit when I am wrong.
Oh, happy to. Yeah, me too.
Yeah, so we'll talk about that too. Spoiler alerts, I loved it, but we'll talk about it when we get down to it. But yeah, man. So how's your week been?
Busy.
busy. Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I've been busy too, man. Been working. I've been a mix between reading and audiobook, with Audible. I've just jumped into fantasy series. And I'm curious if you'd want to join in with me too. I've been doing a few books. The Way of Kings. Have you heard of that?
I think you mentioned it last time, or we talked about it at some point, I think.
Yeah, Brandon Sanderson, I've jumped into two series. The Wheel of Time.
Oh.
By Robert Jordan.
Yeah.
And there's 14 books for that?
Yeah, and they're each 8,000-9,000 pages long.
Yes, they're big. It's a big series, but man, I've been like I said, I've been so hyped on Game. That's the other thing. I've been reading the Game of Thrones books too, so I've been kind of a crazy person.
Fair enough.
I've been doing like 3 or 4 chapters, and then because I figured it out. I have ADHD, if you can't tell. I am always hyper. I'm always constant. My mind's going a million miles in every different direction it should not be going, essentially. So reading to me, it's difficult because I'll read a chapter or two, and then I'll go, wait a second, what the hell did I just read? Because I've been thinking about a million other things in my head. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And so I have to be like, it has to be like The Name of the Wind or something for me to be like just so focused where I can read 3 or 4 chapters and I'm just hooked. What I've been doing is I've been jumping between them. So like I've been like, okay, that's been a great few chapters. I'm going to go to this book. And it's been kind of a crazy thing to do, but it's actually made it way more enjoyable, if that makes sense.
Nice.
Because, yeah, it's kind of like watching a few shows at once or something. It's like I'll do a few chapters and I'll be like, I want to see what's going on in Westeros right now. And then I'll go through a few more chapters there. So I'm pretty much done with the first Game of Thrones. And I've been going through the first, it's called The Way of the Kings. And it's the Stormlight Chronicle series or something. The Stormlight Archive series is what his series is called. And there's supposed to be 10, and he's written 3 so far. And then, of course, The Wheel of Time. I've done about 4 or 5 chapters, and it's a lot. Brandon Sanderson, by the way, he's the one who finished the Wheel of Time series.
Okay.
So when Robert Jordan passed away, they chose Brandon Sanderson to finish the series because his writing style is extremely similar. He's not shy to say that he got a lot of his influence from Robert Jordan. And it's kind of interesting because it's like it's different time frames of fantasy. Like Wheel of Time is almost more like back to like Lord of the Rings kind of fantasy. Brandon Sanderson's stuff is way more modern writing, if that makes sense, like fantasy. And Game of Thrones is kind of it's all over it's in between, but it's very different. It's very dark and everything's falling apart. Where the other ones are a little bit more like I don't know. It's hard to explain. I'm doing a terrible job explaining it but it's been fun to go through. And basically what I was going to do is I was going to finish both the first Wheel of Time book and the Way of the Kings, and kind of decide which way I was going to go with finishing. The Wheel of Time seems daunting though, with 14 books.
They're huge.
They are.
Because I read the first. What is the first one? The Eye of the World, I think.
The Eye of the World.
Yeah, I think I got like a quarter of the way through, and it took me weeks.
Yes.
And I was just like, I can't. Okay, I gotta go back. And the thing is, like, there's a lot. Those books are really detailed and very deliberately paced. They're not slow, because when I say like, oh, it's slow paced, that sounds like a bad thing. It's deliberately paced. Like, it takes its time for a reason.
Yeah. He'll describe everything on the table.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's very Tolkien in that way, because Tolkien did that too, and that kind of makes me crazy after a while.
Yeah, and see, that's kind of what. See, I don't know. I've just been on a weird fantasy kick, and I'll get in moods where I want that. I want that Tolkien type of fantasy kick, but then it gets too much.
Yeah.
That's when I jump to George R. R. Martin or this Brandon Sanderson guy, and you could tell he's like, it's like, I want to make sure I say this right. It's a modern version of what Robert Jordan was doing, if that makes sense. It's just put together a little bit easier for the reader, if that makes sense.
Right. It's a different writing style. Yeah.
It is. But it's still so good. And so I've just been in a kick with that recently. I haven't played anything. I want to get back to playing something. Confession, I've never finished Elder Scrolls.
Which one?
Skyrim, sorry.
Really?
I want to finish that. I've always gotten like 1,000,000 hours into it. Never rolled credits on it.
Huh. Interesting.
Yeah, so I think that might be the next thing I jump into, because it's all very much the same as all this other stuff. And like I said, man, when I'm not reading or doing any of that, or if the audiobook is if I'm riding my bike or I'm in the car, if I'm not doing that, dude, I'm on YouTube channels looking up like what I should read next, or all the different fantasy shows coming out, because I didn't put this together, but we've talked about this a million times. We know Amazon is doing the Wheel of Time.
Yeah,
they're starting to shoot this year in Prague. I think in like September or August or something like that.
Okay.
And they're also doing the Lord of the Rings show.
Yeah, they're doing them both.
2 giant fantasy shows at the same time. I'm curious. I want them to be good, obviously. But man, 2 giant fantasy shows at the exact same time. Like, not even HBO is doing that. They got one, But and then of course we have the Witcher series from Netflix is doing. I'm not sure when that's coming out though.
Probably next year, I would imagine.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it says 2019.
Really? So then it's going to be late this year.
Wait a second. Okay, it says set for release January 2000, or I'm sorry, hold on a second. I'm getting different reports here.
Yeah, because I don't think they've actually announced.
Yeah, no, I guess 15 hours ago, the Netflix The Witcher series release date gets leaked. The series would be released. The company said the series would be released 2019, but no specific date. I guess it must have been on some sort of call or something like that.
Might have been, because they did. It's coming around turn of the quarter for a lot of companies.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it says December 20, 2019, just in time for Christmas. That would be awesome.
Yeah,
that would be a great little Christmas present. We'd have Star Wars. We'd have The Witcher. And that's and we've talked about it before. The Witcher comes from a set of novels, so a lot of companies are just diving into this fantasy genre for television.
Well, because when it's done well, it makes huge money.
Yes, absolutely.
When it's not done well, like pick anything young adult that's been done in the last 15 years that wasn't Twilight.
Yes.
It does terribly.
Absolutely. And even when, and we'll talk about, especially with Game of Thrones right now, whenever something becomes so massive, it's going to divide a lot of people. Look at Star Wars, for example.
Well, but there's one thing. Division is one thing. Bad quality is another.
but that's exactly what I was going to say.
Yeah.
If people are talking about it, it's better than people not talking about it, and people dismissing it, and people putting it to the side saying that's trash. Does that make sense?
I mean, in a way, sure, but I don't know.
What do you mean?
I don't subscribe to the whole there's no such thing as bad publicity kind of thing.
Well, no, that's not really what I meant. It's better for people to be talking about your work than it to be left to the side. And I guess I'm saying that in a roundabout way. I don't know. The numbers keep going up. They're not doing anything wrong. If that makes sense?
Yeah. I mean, I get that.
I'm not saying that it has to be trash, and because eventually people will just stop seeing it if it is actual trash. Like for example, what was that young adult movie series that just went like straight to DVD?
Which one?
God, I'm trying to think of the one. I don't know. They all seem so similar.
That's the unfortunate point. It's like,
not The Descendants. What was it called? The
Divergent? No, that
Divergent.
Yes. No, that had theater. Like the last one they were gonna do,
right?
But they didn't even do it.
Oh, see, that's what I mean. Like it just dwindles.
It just stopped. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't want that to happen to any of these series.
That's fair.
Obviously, I think Lord of the Rings will have the Tolkien stuff behind it, but of course, the Hobbit movies did leave a sour taste in some people's mouth.
Yeah, but that's because they went more, they stretched. I mean, look at what they did with Lord of the Rings. They made one movie per book, and in The Hobbit, they made 3 movies per one book. Like that's
absolutely. Yeah.
And the things that the other problem with that was so much of the pacing. It was like they really just wanted to make The Hobbit the Lord of the Rings, and it's not. It's a very different book to begin with.
Right. Oh yeah. No, yeah. I think it would have been better with just maybe 2 movies. If that, it could have been 1 movie, but 2 movies would have been just fine.
I'd have been all right with 2. I could understand 2.
Yeah. Leave it at a cliffhanger, and then go see the next one the following year. I think that would have been fine. Also, I think they screwed up doing way more CGI than the physical stuff.
Yeah.
But I am excited to see a completely new Lord of the Rings story.
Oh, totally.
Because I think it's gonna take place before the events of Lord of the Rings.
Yeah,
but it's supposed to be a brand new story.
Yeah, it's young Aragorn, which we don't really know anything about.
Right. So I'm fascinated by that. I think the Wheel of Time is that's gonna be a hit or miss. Because Lord of the Rings, where Tolkien has the fans for the movies that went and saw it, and of course, obviously, everyone that it's the Godfather of fantasy. But it has what am I trying to say? The wide appeal of audiences because of not only the books but the movies that made it, just crazy.
Right. Everybody knows Lord of the Rings.
Everyone knows Lord of the Rings, absolutely. It went from like the Godfather of fantasy books and novels. So if you're a reader, to like everybody knows it. So it has that behind it. But where the Wheel of Time doesn't. The Wheel of Time is to some people some of the best fantasy ever written for people who read fantasy, but it does not have that mass appeal that Lord of the Rings does.
Exactly.
And it's also not a at least from what I understand, it's not the same kind of fantasy that George R.R. Martin does, where it's very dark and political and more like grimdark, if that makes sense.
Yeah, but I mean, here's the thing: Game of Thrones was in much the same boat. I had never heard of it until HBO picked it up.
Right, yeah, and I think most people didn't hear of it. I mean, I think if you're in the circles of people who were like love reading and that's their thing, they've probably heard of it.
Yeah.
I actually saw an interview where George R.R. Martin talks about how he believes, a big part of his first book being sold was Robert Jordan had a little thing on it on the cover that said, this is the next best fantasy series. Kind of as like a, hey, go check this out. So it's and I think like most people didn't hear of it. I know a lot of people that never heard of Lord of the Rings before the movies came out. They might have heard their English teacher or somebody talk about it a few times, or they might have heard of what a Hobbit was, but that's about it. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
But even though it was, I think before Harry Potter, it was the most sold book outside of the Bible for the last 100 years.
Yeah, I think it was something like that. Yeah,
something like that. Yeah. So it's huge, and and I have friends who never pick up books ever, asking me what's the next thing. The Game of Thrones is over. What's next? And of course, I tell them, well, they're working on another series, so you have that. You have another Game of Thrones series that's like a prequel. But in the next few years, I'd say in the next 3 years, we are going to have it on all different places. And if you count Mandalorian as well, if you count Star Wars as fantasy, that's another series that we're going to be getting.
Yeah, that's true. It's a good point.
And a lot of these, I say fantasy, but they're very genre mixing, if that makes sense. I mean, The Mandalorian almost feels like a Western, but obviously it's sci-fi. But Star Wars, if you break it down, it's kind of a fantasy story anyway.
True.
Just set in a different, I don't know.
Well, I mean, anyway. Here's the thing. Think about, how does Star Wars always start? A long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. How does every fairy tale ever start? Once upon a time in a faraway land.
Oh yeah. No, it's very much the what's the phrase? The journey of a hero or whatever. It's very much that. You have a princess. You have the farm boy longing for adventure, and you got you got his guide to help him, the older, wiser master to lead him on his way. And it's very much it's all inspired, you know what I mean? And so it's all good. I mean, for example, the Brandon Sanderson, the Way of the Kings, I didn't realize this. All of his novels apparently are set in the same universe, just different worlds.
Okay.
Which is kind of fascinating if you think about it. Hey, can you still hear me?
Yeah, I got you.
Okay, sorry, I had a little issue on my end, but I found that fascinating. I think it's called the Cosmere. I don't know. People are going to scream at me for that, but I thought that was fascinating that all of his different stories are just set in different worlds. And that's, if you think about Star Wars, it is a fantasy story. It's just set on a planet, set in a universe where some places the technology is crazy high tech, and some places it's not. So I don't know. It's all genre bending. It's all good. So yeah, I would definitely count The Mandalorian as part of that. With The Witcher, with The Wheel of Time, with all of that stuff. And if done right, it could be great. There's so much source material for a lot of these different things, and I for one can't wait. It's definitely made me want to jump into the books. So that's always a good thing.
Yeah. Nice.
Yeah, man. So I can't wait. But yeah, no, that's what I've been up to. Just been reading, and I can't stay with one thing, so I've been just jumping back and forth. And those are the big ones. When I ask people like, hey, what should I read? Those are the two big ones. They're like, you should read Wheel of Time, or this King. And I've had them on my Audible forever, but life happens, and you get sidetracked, and it takes you one way, and you find yourself back to where, oh wait, I had this on here, so I'll listen to it. and then suddenly I found myself at Barnes and Noble picking up the book because I was like, no, I actually want to read it. So, but yeah. Anyway. But yeah, so that was it. But yeah, so I don't know. It's been a fun couple of weeks. Just been working and doing that. And we of course went and saw Detective Pikachu. Now, I thought I read that it toppled Avengers in the United States. Is that true?
That is not true.
No, see, I thought it did.
No, it did not. It didn't do too bad, all things considered. But no, it did not topple. It did.
That's good.
It did like Friday.
Okay.
It won like the Thursday, Friday numbers.
Gotcha.
So like its opening night, it did better, but it didn't hold quite through the weekend. Avengers picked up a little over 63 million altogether. Combine that with the, I think like 100 million more it did overseas, we're at 2.5 billion almost.
Yeah.
Another 300 million to go before it topples Avatar. It will get there. It's gonna take it a little. It may take it a month, but it'll get there.
Yeah.
It's not, because now we're in the long slog, because it was so front loaded these first couple of weeks, And,
Yeah.
now we had Detective Pikachu. Next week is John Wick. The week after is Aladdin. The week after is Godzilla. The week after is X-Men. It's 2 weeks, and then there's something else I can't remember. But it's like every week is something else big coming out now for the next, like, month. And it's craziness. But so it's gonna slow down. It's gonna slow down pretty heavy, but it's gonna get there. It'll get there in the end.
Yeah.
Detective Pikachu had a all things considered, especially had a damn good opening. 54 million is nothing to sneeze at. Especially considering the competition. If this had had its weekend all to itself, it would have done 100. Easy.
Oh yeah.
I guarantee you. And it'll stick around for a while. I'm going to be curious to see, because I know John Wick's going to be number 1 this weekend. No doubt in my mind. But I'm going to be curious to see if Endgame falls far enough to hit 3rd and Pikachu stays at 2nd, or if they just both fall and it's Endgame 2, Pikachu 3.
Yeah, I'm curious too. I'm gonna be seeing Detective Pikachu again this weekend with my friend and her kids.
Nice.
Yeah, and a lot of the parents and stuff that I've talked to, they wanted to wait. They didn't, because they knew Avengers was still in the theater.
Yeah, so it's still gonna be nuts.
Yeah, that's exactly what their thought was. It was like, well, rather be able to get there and get some popcorn and stuff like that, where the week after Avengers is going to be insane. At least that's what their thought process. It was 2 other moms that I talked to, because I was like, hey, you gonna take your kids to see the Pikachu movie? They're like, yeah, eventually. So
I get that. I totally understand that. Yeah.
Yeah. But that's good. That's good. I'm glad it didn't just go in and bomb. I think it had like the best. It set records for like a video game movie as well.
Yeah, it did.
Which is good. Which is really good. So, I mean, I hope we get more of those. Hope we get some more set in the Pokemon universe.
I think we will. I definitely think we will. I think this is going to do what Pokemon Go did 3 years ago now. God, has that really been out 3 years? Holy shit. And completely revitalize the franchise in the public eye. I mean, because Pokemon Go as a worldwide phenomenon had fallen off big before Pokemon Go. Like, I mean, it was still huge. Don't get me wrong, but it was nowhere near what it had been 20 years ago.
Right.
And then Pokemon Go came out, and everybody went nuts, and Pokemon was huge again. And then it had slowly started to come back down, and now with Detective Pikachu, it's back up again.
Yeah, but you saw it had the bump. It basically, when Pokemon Go came out, and it was this massive thing, and then of course, like anything else, it goes down a little bit, but still, month after month, it is a juggernaut for iOS and Android sales.
Oh yeah.
But everything across the board, Pokemon, they saw a bump in sales for the cards, a bump in sales for the games, everything Pokemon related.
Yeah.
And same with this. I think people are gonna go see this, and there's a lot of Gen 1 Pokemon in there, and it's gonna make people go, wow, like that. When you see some Pokemon on the screen, or you see them throw the ball, you get the chills. You're like, wow, I can't believe I'm seeing this.
I bought the what am I looking for here, man? The 3DS version of Crystal. Because it was
nice.
$10, and I was like, I loved Gold and Silver, but I didn't want to play Gold and Silver again because I knew there was that's when they were still doing the 3rd versions. So I was like, cool, I'll do Crystal. And they didn't do. I know there was Heart Gold and Soul Silver, but there was not a remix of Crystal.
Correct.
So I was just like, I'm just gonna do that instead. I know it was still Game Boy Color and everything, and I was like, I don't care. That's the one that I wanted right now.
Right.
I still have Moon that I have barely ever touched.
Yeah.
But I'm gonna work on those, and when Sword and Shield come out towards the end of the year, like I'm there. I'm gonna be in for sure.
It's a shame Heart Gold and Soul Silver didn't come out digitally. To me, it's a no-brainer. I mean, I love the remakes of those because it's like the Game Boy Advance version of them.
Yeah.
And they're really well done. But the problem is you go to GameStop and they're $50 easy.
Yeah, no thanks, pass.
Yeah, exactly. There's no way to transfer those Pokemon either to the current games. But Crystal, you can 100% put those Pokemon in your Pokemon Bank if you wanted to.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, the I can't wait for the new game to come out. I'm hyped for that. Um, I just saw, by the way, I'll send you the link if you wanted. Anyone that wanted, like, if you have a Switch and you want some storage, I think Amazon has the 400 gigabyte one now for $50.
Yeah, I saw that from Wario. Yeah.
Yeah, so if you got some disposable income and you want some more space on your Switch, and you're getting ready for some digital releases, you can't beat that. A few years ago, that was $300.
Yeah.
And 400 gigabytes, I can't imagine you needing any more than that on the Switch. So.
No, not for a Switch. At least not for a while.
Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, man. So yeah, I'm excited. It's, I want to jump back in the Pokemon games. Just like I said, I've been reading like crazy. So, but yeah, man. I can't wait for that. It comes out what, November?
Yeah,
Or no, sooner than that, right?
Is it? I thought it was November.
Pokemon Sword and Shield.
Yeah, it's either November. It's September, maybe.
Yeah, I think it might be September. No, it just says 2019. So we'll find out soon at E3.
No, I'm pretty sure there's been release dates announced.
Does it say September 16th?
I want to think so.
Yeah, it's got to be right.
I'm not online.
It just says 2019 on everything I'm looking at.
Really? I could have sworn that there was a release date announced.
Yeah. I'm not sure.
That's unfortunate.
Yeah. September or November is usually, that's going to be the sweet spot I'm thinking where it's going to be at. It'll be right before the Christmas time.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Which would be cool.
Hang on, I found something. No, yeah, all I'm seeing is later 2019.
Yeah.
Evidently, it may be compatible with Pokemon Go.
I mean, they might do what they did with the last one and have like a special Pokemon that you can transfer back and forth.
Yeah.
I imagine with Pokemon Go, what they'll do as a, they might release it where they'll release some of the Pokemon from that generation in the game as like a promotional thing. That would be really cool, like the starters or something.
Yeah, it seems to be what it looks like. Like, it's going to be the traditional Pokemon gameplay style. It won't be like Sword and Shield.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, just 2019. I really could have sworn there was a date for it. Oh well.
Yep, I'm sure we'll find out at E3. I mean, I imagine the Pokemon games and Animal Crossing or whatever will be their big thing at E3.
Yeah.
When is E3, by the way?
June. What? Middle of June. It's like in a month, I think.
It's nothing. Yeah, it's next month, so we'll find out shortly. Because we found out pretty much what Nintendo's been planning for the first part of this year, and E3 is going to be definitely where we find out like some definitive dates. For the later part of the year. They got Mario Maker coming out soon. Man, they got a lot of fun games coming out on the Switch.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I got Civilization 6, and then I started reading. I was like, fuck,
oh,
what a
man.
waste. But I'll get back to it.
Oh, that's right. Civ is something that you can just come back to. Like, I can't sit down and play a whole game of Civ at once anyway. Like, it takes forever.
No, yeah. I don't think anyone can. I should have waited a few days. I should have sat, but I'm so impulsive. I was like, man, I've been reading all this Game of Thrones and watching. I want to play something like it, and then just my interest just was like, well, there's all these other books I could read. And then it's like something switched, like it flipped a switch there, and I was like, all right, well, I'll get back to that. But yeah, man, where were we? Where were we?
The hustle.
Yeah. Oh yeah, the hustle.
Yeah, here was the weird thing. I thought that the Mother's Day crowd was all going to turn out for Palms. That's what I genuinely thought was going to happen. That's not what happened. They all turned out for the hustle. That was why the hustle made $13 million. That was all that Mother's Day crowd. And
gotcha.
I was not expecting that. I thought it was going to go to Palms. I was wrong.
Yeah.
I was unfortunately wrong because those crowds were awful to clean up after. If you're gonna take ice cream to the theater, if you're gonna take a carton of Ben and Jerry's, eat all of it. or throw it out on your way out. Do not leave a sideways half-full container of Ben & Jerry's on my floor. I will find you. Oh, God. I hate people. I do. I really do. But yeah, The Hustle made $13 million, so good for it. The Intruder picked up another $7 million, puts it at 21.5 altogether, which is not bad for a PG-13 kind of crappy-looking, not all that scary movie.
Yeah.
And I haven't heard a lot of great things from people coming out of it either. So
the Intruder just looks like a movie that you go and rent a movie from Blockbuster in the 90s, and that looks like one of the trailers you see at the beginning of it. You're like, well, I'm never going to watch that.
Exactly. That's pretty much exactly my thought. Was like, oh yeah, I wouldn't have known about that if if I didn't follow this stuff, I never would have known about this movie at all.
It's a VHS trailer.
Yeah.
It's just like, okay, well, I got to fast forward this part.
Coming soon to Disney DVD and VHS.
Exactly.
And then Long Shot picked up another 6 and change, so puts it just short of 20 million. That's one I have heard good things about. One of the guys at work went and saw it after he got out, and I asked him when he came out. I was like, "How was it?" And he's like, "It was really funny. I'm like, it looks like that. It looks stupid but funny." And he went, "Yeah, okay, that's all I needed. Like, it's a Seth Rogen movie. That's all I want." So,
right. Oh yeah.
But it's another good week, and it'll be another good week at the box office. John Wick, I imagine, 55, 60. I haven't looked at projections. I don't know what they are. They're probably higher, but
I still gotta see the second one.
Oh yeah, you do. Yeah. I'm gonna watch both of them after we get done with this. I'm doing both of them back to back.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
They're just so good. They're so simple.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I like the lore they set up in it.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that. And they explore more of that in the second one.
Oh, okay. Good,
so you would really, really, really like the second one.
Yeah.
Because that's a lot of what the second one is about. It makes the Continental more of a focus.
Oh, that's good.
So it's you'll really dig the second one then.
Yeah, it's like a more realistic God of War.
I mean, yeah, kind of. Yeah. That's a fair... I've never thought about it that way, but yeah. That's not the worst analogy in the world.
Yeah, I dig it. I totally do.
But we've got that coming out this week. We've got The Sun Is Also a Star, and we have A Dog's Journey. Now, for anybody who's been confused over how we've had A Dog's Purpose, and then A Dog's Way Home, and then A Dog's Journey...
Oh, these aren't all the same movie?
No, they're not.
Oh, God.
A Dog's Purpose was the first one, and it was based off the book and what have you. A Dog's Journey was a totally different movie, done by a different studio that was basically just meant to cash in on the same idea.
Okay.
A Dog's Journey is the sequel to A Dog's Purpose.
Okay.
So it's it's kind of weird, especially when you consider that the posters all look the same. That's what's bizarre to me. The posters all look almost exactly the same, and it makes me mad.
What if it was like like the third one? What is that gonna be like? Lord of the Dogs or something?
Man.
Return of the Dog. Like, I don't get it.
We've got a joke of work at like this is the fourth one now because we've had A Dog's Purpose, A Dog's Way Home, we had Isle of Dogs, and now we have A Dog's Journey. It's just like
Dogs 3: Return of the Dog.
It's bizarre. Like this whole thing that they've tried to set up, and I haven't been paying any.
Do you think they're gonna make like a multiverse where they have like a cat's journey, a bird's trip, and then it all leads up to them like working together, and then it's Homeward Bound.
You find out in the end that they all meet and they make a live action The Secret Life of Pets. Like
right.
That's
yeah, exactly.
That's what they're building to.
Yeah.
It's
man. Make another Homeward Bound movie.
Well, that's kind of what A Dog's Journey was supposed to be. It was a knockoff Homeward Bound.
Yeah, but Homeward Bound had like 3 distinct characters.
Yeah.
And then it had a cat. It was a little bit different.
Yeah.
But yeah, I get what you're saying.
And then we have The Sun is Also a Star, which I only know about because we got a poster for it.
Yeah, I don't know anything about that.
I don't either. I don't imagine most people do, so I don't expect it to do pretty much any business whatsoever.
Yeah. They mix up the word sun and sun. I'm kidding.
Who knows? I don't know.
Oh, The Sun is Also a Star. Oh my god, I'm such an idiot. You know what I thought when I read that?
What did you think when you read that?
I was thinking like, okay, the sun, like the kid, is also a star. But then I thought, well, why did they put the word S-U-N instead of S-O-N?
Oh, great.
And then I realized they're talking about how the sun is a star. So stupid. Sorry, I'm so stupid.
That was the long.
It was a long journey to get there.
That was a dog's journey.
Yes. Well, I don't know why in my head I thought like that was a movie about like, I don't know. Anyway. I still have no idea what that movie is about.
No, I don't either.
Yeah.
I mean, I could look. Am I really interested enough to look? I might as well be. This is news, so I should be. The Sun is Also a Star. I know it's based on a book, because of course it is. It's a drama romance. College-bound romantic meets a pragmatist, fall in love in New York. It's like, we're here in New York together for a day, and somebody's in love with somebody, and somebody's family is being deported, and isn't this, like, dramatic? The end. Like, great. So it's yet another one of these kind of, sure, whatever. Okay. Alright, whatever. I'm not interested, so, I mean, do your thing. But, it is what it is. There's an audience for it, so more power to them.
Yeah.
This just screams young adult to me all over again, so.
So, Spider-Man, did you see the trailer?
I did.
Yes.
And, okay, so let's talk about this.
Yes.
I like what they're setting up with him, the idea of, like, there needs to be a face for superheroes.
Yes.
Like, they're basically positioning Spider-Man to...
spoilers for Endgame. If you haven't seen Endgame, maybe fast forward a few minutes.
Yes, very true. Very true.
Yeah.
But it's, it's kind of like they're positioning Spider-Man to take up the mantle that he already has, which is, like, name a superhero. And most people, if they don't say Batman or Superman, they say Spider-Man.
Yes.
Like, he's kind of, it's like, oh yeah, and he's my favorite superhero. It's like, yeah, we know. Because he just is. So I think they're leaning in that direction now with the films of, like, yeah, we know it's Spider-Man. Like, he's the next kind of face of all of this.
Yes.
And I'm good with that. And I loved, they set up, I think, here's the thing. I think the idea they set up in the trailer of the multiverse is legit. I think Mysterio is not. I think that's his ruse. That's how he explains everything is, I'm from another Earth, and these things followed me, and blah, 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 and then we find out it's all bullshit.
Well, I don't think it's all bullshit. I think he might be from another...
Nah.
Here's what I think. I think he is from the multiverse. He's from a different universe.
Nah.
But I think that he was a bad guy in that universe, because I think they set it up in the trailer where they're like, we don't have a Peter Parker or we don't have a Spider-Man where you're from. And the whole time I'm thinking, bullshit. Yes, you do. You're the bad guy, but you came to this universe and you realize that Peter Parker's Spider-Man's kind of brand new, and there is no Mysterio here. And now, and I think he is doing all of those effects and all of that stuff here, but he's kind of trying to be the good guy. He's trying to make himself look like the good guy. But I think Nick Fury and all of them would know if he's lying about being from the multiverse, but I think that they don't know who he was from the other universe, if that makes sense.
That's an interesting theory. I like that theory.
Yeah.
Because I don't think they would know if he was from another universe, though.
Maybe like they could, like, I don't know, just some sort of doohickey that they some magic wand they put on. And they're like, oh yeah, your cells are nothing like this universe. I don't know. I'm thinking that. I guess that's just my thought process. Is that, and I love that. I love what that could possibly set up, because then you open it up to you open up to Fantastic Four.
I mean,
here's all that crazy stuff.
Here's what Marvel did with that trailer. They have officially canonized every Fox movie. They just take place in a different universe. Oh yeah, that's just another universe. Those X-Men movie, yeah, another universe. Both of those sets of Fantastic Four movies, two different universes that also aren't this universe.
Yep.
Like it's all canon. It's just different universes. They have they in that one question. You mean there's a multiverse? They have gone from a Marvel Cinematic Universe to a Marvel Cinematic Multiverse, just like that.
Exactly.
That's exactly what they did.
Yeah, and I think that's what I think. He's lying about something, but I don't think he's lying about the multiverse. I think he's lying about being a hero in that other universe. I think he was a villain. I think to most people who go see it who don't know anything about that, that's going to be a surprise to them, and they're going to be like, "Oh my God, what a twist!" And everyone else who knows Mysterio knows that character. It's a twist on his story. It's where he is a liar, he is a fraud, but he's a fraud about what he's saying. And I don't know. I can't. It made it so much more interesting. Going into it,
I'm going to propose a second twist. I think that I'm of two theories now. I like your theory. I like my other theory, but I kind of like this one. And in a way, I think this one makes a little more sense because everybody knows, like by now, everybody, even if they don't know Mysterio, has heard somebody talk about, well, he's a bad guy in the comics. I think that what's going to happen is he's actually going to be a hero. He's going to die, and the Quentin Beck of this universe, who is going to be more special effects oriented. I'm going to go out on a limb here. I'm going to put my money on this. This Mysterio is legit. There is no VFX. There's no nothing. He's a straight up good guy from another universe.
That would be a cool twist.
He dies at the end of this movie. Or at some point, maybe. And the Quentin Beck of this universe, who is a VFX guy, picks up his gear and reworks it and becomes the Mysterio villain that we know from the comics.
Oh, see, that would be awesome.
I'm going with that. That is my official guess for what happens, because because they had to know going into it that everybody was going to be telling everybody, well, yeah, but he's a villain in the comics. So that twist is ruined. That whole twist immediately is out the window, I think. I don't think you can just do a straight up he turns on everybody halfway through.
No, I think you're right. I think that's kind of what they did with not the Mandalorian, the Mandarin, right? Where they're like, everyone's going to go into this having their own idea of what that guy is.
Yeah.
And they turned it on its head completely.
And boy, did they! That was a thing where either you thought it was brilliant or you hated it in your soul. There was no middle ground with that.
Right. Oh yeah.
And I loved it. I thought it was hilarious. Oh, it was great. I know people hate that more than anything, but you know. It worked. It worked for the universe they were creating. It's why there wasn't a Fing Fang Foom anywhere. Like, it just wasn't going to work.
Yes. Oh yeah.
But no, I think that's what I think. I think that's how they're gonna spin that. Of like, well, no, he actually was a hero, but this guy though, who's our universe is Quentin Beck. He's gonna take everything, and he's gonna blame, oh shit, Disney bought Hulu. He's, sorry, just happened to see that.
Well, they own majority in it, and what they did is they bought out the Comcast's minority.
Yeah, I just now saw that.
I mean, we knew that coming when they bought.
Yeah.
When Fox sold it to them, it just wasn't. The ink wasn't dried, I guess.
Yeah, Comcast will sell its stake starting in 2024 for at least $5.8 billion.
Right.
Until then, Comcast is basically just kind of there. They don't have any control. Right. They're a quote-unquote silent investor. Right.
Yeah, okay. When Fox sold their part of the company to them, they sold that was part of it. So it was they were going to have a majority stake in Hulu. Now, what they do with Hulu, I don't even know. Like, you already have your Disney Plus app. I think that's where they're going to put their rated R shows. I mean, that's why we're getting a lot of these shows on Hulu anyway.
Yeah, I agree. I think Hulu is going to be the more adult-ish focused side. Yeah, I agree.
Right. Yeah. So I figured that would be coming, and that's why I think a lot of their, when Disney's doing its Disney Plus, but I think when they want to do more R-rated stuff, that's where they're going to put it.
Well, I mean, they talked about, and I think it's probably in these notes here somewhere, they're doing, Ghost Rider and Damon Hellstrom, on Hulu.
Yep.
You can't do that on Disney Plus.
Exactly. So we might still get a Daredevil, a rebooted Daredevil that's rated R, or Punisher, but it would just be on Hulu instead. That's all.
I think that in the next couple of years you're going to start seeing that for sure.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Now, did you hear the rumors about what the next phases for Marvel's going to be?
I didn't hear any rumors. I have some thoughts, but what are the rumors?
Well, the rumors is that they're going to, so they're not going to be calling it the Avengers anymore. The next Avengers films are going to be like Secret Avengers, Young Avengers, Dark Avengers.
Okay.
There was also rumors that Thor is signed on to do the next Guardians movie.
Well, I mean, that was basically confirmed already.
But that he also is going to be doing a Thor 4. Apparently, he's really excited about doing Thor again because he likes the direction his character has gone in the last few movies.
It revitalized it. He was super hyped with Ragnarok because he was excited about this character again.
Yep. And rumor is that the next movie, the next Guardian movies, is going to have Zac Efron as Adam Warlock.
Okay, I'm all right with that.
Yes, and what's his face? Oh, who's the horse guy from Thor?
Beta Ray Bill, really?
Beta Ray Bill, yes, and that's how they'll tie in with Thor will play a major part in it, because with Beta Ray Bill apparently is, I don't know, I don't have it in front of me, but you know how they experimented and they created Adam Warlock, that Beta Ray Bill is some sort of experiment as well, but he, I think that would be a funny joke. He's worthy, and Thor's like, how many people are worthy?
Yeah, right.
That's gonna be fun.
This used to be special. What is this?
Everyone's getting my hammers, So, I love that idea. That and it's gonna be called Nova and the Guardians of the Galaxy.
What, the next one? Really?
Yeah. Yes.
No.
Again, rumors.
I think they gave you the title of it I think they gave the title in Endgame.
What do you mean?
I think
as Guardians of the Galaxy?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, let's see here. Let me see if I can pull it up here. It talked about, of course, there's going to be new Black Panther. Hold on.
They're getting because I think Phase 4 is going to be Black Panther 2, Doctor Strange 2, Guardians 3, and the Black Widow. Yeah.
Yeah, and don't expect any. Oh, and they said that the next big bad guy. They said don't expect 10 years spanning Thanos again. It's going to be 2 or 3 movies shorter, continuing story arcs, if that makes sense. And they said the next villain, depending on what happens with Sony, is they want to set up Norman Osborn as a big baddie, and that rumor is that he's the one who bought Tony's tower, and that's going to play a big part into the Spider-Man movies, which makes sense. Tony's old tower, now it's Osborn Tower, all the ties between Tony and Spider-Man. That's kind of a beautiful way to mix those two universes, as the same.
I agree, and I think it also allows for some fun backstory. Like that's where we'll get the flashbacks of how he gets his powers and stuff.
Yes,
that'll be I remember that time we went to Oscorp before it was shut down.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. So and they said don't expect any Fantastic Four or X-Men until the next phase, until after these.
Yeah. There were not going to be Phase 4. There was no way.
Yeah. So that pretty much sums it up with the rumors. I don't have it in front of me, but that's what I remember reading. And I loved the throw Nova in there, throw Beta Ray Bill, and Zac Efron as Adam Warlock is perfect. I love his stuff. So, I saw his Ted Bundy film on Netflix. It's so creepy.
He gives good creepy. Like,
yes, he does.
It's kind of terrifying.
It really is. Oh, I started also watching, I think it's like Black Summer or something. It's a zombie show on Netflix.
Okay.
Have you heard of it?
I don't think so.
Okay, so if you got Netflix, it's called Black Summer. I've watched 4 or 5 episodes. I don't know how many there are. Let me see here. Season 1. There are, looks like maybe 10 episodes. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Oh, maybe 8 episodes. Okay. It's very much. It's hard to explain. It's a zombie show. But it's like the first. It's like the first part of Dawn of the Dead, the new one. So the first part where like they wake up and like cars are crashing into each other and all hell's breaking loose?
Yeah.
That's what this is like. It's the very beginning of a zombie apocalypse. And there's no explanation. There's no nothing. You're just kind of a camera following around these people that, and it jumps from person to person. And the episodes are almost set up almost like chapters where within the episode, maybe there's like 4 breakaways and it has like a title on the screen. And it's almost like if it would be like the title of a chapter. And then the characters, all end up meeting up in some place, which isn't really a spoiler. You kind of get the feeling that, okay, why are they showing you all these different characters? They kind of run into each other. But you kind of see the journey, and it's brutal. It's extremely violent. It's 100% rated R. It's The Walking Dead if The Walking Dead could be as violent as this is. And The Walking Dead's extremely violent. But this is like they can do whatever they want. There's no ratings. There's
right.
They can show nudity or whatever.
Yeah.
And it gives you anxiety the whole time. So if you're in the mood for a good zombie thing, absolutely go watch this.
Okay.
Yep. So, but yeah. So yeah, go watch Black Summer.
Just wondering when we're gonna get tired of zombies, because we've got that now. I mean, there was, we've got 2 zombie movies coming out this October. Like,
yeah, I don't know what made me watch it. I think we were just looking for something to put on. We were playing cards, and I was like, well, hey, I've seen a few people talk about this on Facebook, and we didn't know anything about it. And there's, like I said, there's no like, it's not where The Walking Dead, it really builds character. This is just like you're behind them. You're behind their camera. You don't know what's going through their head. You don't know what's going on. It's just chaos. There's hardly any talking. It's just it's weird. I don't know how to explain it. It's just a fun little journey. It's one of those things just put on if you're like playing cards or playing a video game or something like that. It's interesting. If that makes sense. I'm not saying it's like some, groundbreaking, dramatic thing you gotta pay. It's just a crazy zombie story. And if you like the opening of Dawn of the Dead, that chaos that happens where like it's just they don't know what to do, or like for example the opening of what's the video game, the PlayStation game, the one they just did the sequel to, The Last of Us. The opening of that game where it's just chaos, that's what this is.
Okay.
Yeah, that's exactly what this is. So it's fun, and it's one of those with the zombies. As soon as someone dies, they instantly turn, and they're chasing you.
Huh.
Yeah. It's not like it waits a week or a couple hours or anything like that. When someone's dead, their eyes just turn and they're up and they're going after you. So it's frightening. And yeah, one of the characters is deaf too. It's kind of an interesting like, oh wow, that's frightening. But yeah. Anyway, where were we? Sorry, didn't mean to get so sidetracked.
No, that's all right. That's interesting. I never would have heard of that. I don't think.
Yeah. It's just one of the random things on Netflix.
Yeah.
They should really have a button on Netflix that's just like random. They put something on.
Do you remember Max?
Max?
From when Netflix was on PlayStation? Like when it was when it was a disc on PlayStation? They had a thing It had a thing called Max, and it was basically like a little game where you would, you were like this or that, and you would do that like a bunch of times and pick a genre you were kind of thinking about, and it would spit out some random title.
Oh wow!
And
I didn't know that.
and it was always trash. Like every time, it picked the worst shit every single time.
That's funny.
It would be like, oh, you like these things that were critically acclaimed. Here's something that wouldn't even be considered a sci-fi original movie. It was just like, why? Why you do this? Why?
Right. Yeah. Oh, man.
They do. Netflix basically just needs a roulette. Like, there needs to be a surprise me button on Netflix.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And do one for each. Just do it by genre. You go to action, surprise me. Thriller, surprise me. Horror, surprise me. Just for each genre. It's that simple.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And it just starts playing. It doesn't come up with a screen or something. It just goes through and randomly picks something and it starts playing. And you're like, I don't know what the hell this is. And then 10 minutes in, it's like, oh, no, I don't like this. And you back out and try it again.
Yeah, man, that seriously should be a thing.
But,
Yeah, absolutely. What do we got on Disney coming up?
Okay, so Disney has announced some changes to their schedule and then basically how they own Christmas for a decade. They moved Ad Astra, which was that one sci-fi movie that I don't think I knew anything about that was supposed to come out in like 2 weeks. They bumped it until September 20th. They moved, and they've done a lot of this, like a lot of this was Fox stuff. Spies in Disguise was a Fox movie. They moved it from September to Christmas, which I'm fine with, because there's not really a quote-unquote kids movie coming out for Christmas. I mean, there's Star Wars, which kids are going to go see, and people are going to take their kids to see, but there wasn't a targeted specifically at kids movie for Christmas. They moved the New Mutants so they can finally do the reshoots they need to do. It's going to come out April 3rd of next year.
Oh my god!
It's gonna be
just put it on Hulu already.
I saw this. I saw somebody say, it's gonna be great watching the cast go around and do press for this movie that they did 4 years ago that they don't remember a goddamn thing about. They moved Artemis Fowl by almost a year. It was supposed to come out in August. It's coming out the end of May next year. They're doing the West Side, the live action. Well, I say live action. The feature film musical version of West Side Story, as opposed to like just filming a play. That's coming out December 18th next year. For Christmas next year, we're getting the Cruella de Vil live action movie. And then Disney begins to own Christmas. Basically. Every odd-numbered year, you get an Avatar movie. Every even-numbered year, you get a Star Wars movie. Yep. So Avatar 2 comes out, around Christmas in 21, Star Wars in 22, Avatar 3 in 23, Star Wars in 24, Avatar 4 in 25, Star Wars in 26, and Avatar 5 in 27.
Yeah, and they officially announced that those Star Wars movies are going to be the Game of Thrones showrunners Star Wars movies.
Yeah, well, they better have started working on those Star Wars films 5 years ago because we see what happens when they decide, oh hey, this is when we want it to end, and we're gonna make a thing end when we want it to end, and screw everything.
Wait, what?
That's we'll get to that, but
so wait, yeah, I don't know what you mean by that.
What they're doing with Game of Thrones. Or what I guess what they did with Game of Thrones, I suppose.
Yeah.
But
no, they're already working on it though. They've already talked about they've been working on it.
Good. And this, this is a case of where I want Disney to say, no, this is when we want it done by, and this is how we want it done.
Right.
But so yeah, basically, if you have a movie that you want to release on Christmas, do it next year. Because for the next 7 years after that, you're screwed.
Right. And they've also announced, it was in a call today, I guess, that not only The Mandalorian is coming out on television or for the Disney app, they're also working on a different Star Wars live action television show. They just didn't announce what it was.
And possibly a third.
Yeah.
Well, no, they did. We know that the Rogue One prequel series, the one that follows Cassian. We know that's
right. I'm talking about one. They talked about there is a different one that they're working on that they haven't announced yet.
Yeah, that third one.
Besides those two.
Right. Yeah.
So it could be Obi-Wan. That could be a solo series. Who knows?
It's hard to tell. Be interesting. Disney also took Gambit and 3 untitled Fox Marvel films from the schedule, those were probably placeholders for like another shot at the Fantastic Four and another couple X-Men spin-offs.
Yeah, they were gonna do a Doom movie, a Gambit movie, and I believe it was what's her name? She goes invisible. Kitty Pryde movie.
Okay, yeah.
That what's his face was working on, but yeah, all those were taken off, which we assumed that was gonna happen. You know, Disney's gonna want to play with this with the toys the way they want to do it. They're not gonna want to pick up the slack from.
Yeah, the big franchises are all gonna be Disney controlled. Fox will have its autonomy with all the other projects, but at the end of the day, Disney gets the final say on things. And I don't mind that they took these things off the schedule because there was no progress being made on any of them.
Right.
Like,
exactly.
I mean, look at Gambit. Gambit had what, 2 different directors, 3 different directors, something like that. Like, it was going.
And no one was excited about it. There was no hype for it. It was just people reporting on it, but that's it.
Yeah, nobody was like, "Oh my God, they're really moving forward with this." I mean, I still hope that it somehow happens. And even with Channing Tatum, because I still think that could work. I do. I really do.
Yeah.
But I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah.
Oh, the other thing we know Marvel's doing a movie about the Eternals. That's the other thing that we know. Richard Madden was the next guy that they've announced to join the cast. He was Robb Stark, I think. He was
Robb, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's hope this movie goes better for him. This, and I like this news. F. Gary Gray, who did Straight Outta Compton, he's doing Men in Black International. He's been tapped to do a Saints Row movie.
What kind of Saints Row movie are they doing?
I hope it's wild and ridiculous and outlandish.
Okay. I was gonna say because they're all very different.
They are.
They go from
I think that movie wise, I think 2 would be the best one to adapt because it's a little nuts, but it didn't go overboard yet.
Right, it's not full blown.
Yeah,
crazy.
Yeah, no, 3 was where they just kind of went, okay. Oh wait, rules? That's adorable.
And see, I don't know. It's one of those things where it works for the game. I don't know if it'll work for movie, or it will feel like, instead of Straight Outta Compton, it will feel like, what was the Wayne Brothers one?
White Chicks? No.
No. Don't be a menace in South Central while drinking juice in the hood.
God, there's a blast. Yeah.
I think it's gonna feel more like that.
It has to be a little it's Saints Row. It has to be a little ridiculous for sure.
That's what I mean. I'm wondering how Naked Gun it's gonna get. If that makes sense. Or what's the one? What was the What was the air? Oh man, what was it?
Airplane? Yeah, it was just called Airplane.
No, not Airplane. It was the Top Gun one.
Was it Hot Shots 2?
Hot Shots.
Yeah,
that's what I mean. Is it gonna be like Hot Shots?
Who knows? I doubt it. I think it'll be more grounded. I'm not expecting Training Day serious.
Right.
I think there'll be some elements of that. Like they're not gonna shy away from, this is this life. But I also think
dildo bats. Do you think they'll have those in the movie?
Man, you know what? I really hope so. Because I really hope so too. I think you have to. I think because this is a franchise that is known for being, obviously it's known now for being very crazy, but it's known for being, not quite it's a lighthearted Grand Theft Auto. Really. Yeah. There's emotion to it. If you play through the series, you get attached to these characters. But it's also, it does not shy away from being ridiculous. And I think you can totally find that balance for a movie. Absolutely. Just because people are weird, I think the idea of here are these, whack jobs who are all part of a gang, I don't think that's a stretch at all.
Yeah.
But so I don't know. That'll be good. Did you see the It Chapter 2 trailer?
I did, yes.
Oh, creepy.
That's creepy.
Yep. Looking forward to it though. Like not gonna lie.
Yeah.
They started pre-production on the Mortal Kombat reboot.
Yeah.
It's gonna start shooting later this year. It's gonna be shot in South Australia. So
that's cool.
You know, they wanted to keep this as far away from civilization as possible, I suppose.
Yeah. Yeah. That's with who's the guy behind that now?
Oh, it's James Wan's producing it.
Awesome.
Because the director's a first-time director. I don't have his name here.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, James Wan's producing it. So that's I have hope. I do.
Yeah.
I hope
I'm down for that.
Yeah, I hope it. This is another thing that shouldn't shy away from ridiculousness.
No, it's
because I mean,
before Pokemon, that was one of the few video game movies that I actually really enjoyed.
Yeah, because it was so bad it was good. Like
yeah.
it didn't work, but that was part of what made it entertaining. That was the thing. Like it was cheese to the max, but it worked. Annihilation, not so much. It was just bad. But it'll be interesting. And then for the Suicide Squad, Michael Rooker might be playing King Shark. It was announced he was in talks to do it, then he was doing it, then he wasn't doing it, so I don't know what the final word on this is. I mean, he's already had the Finn, so I mean, it really wouldn't be a big stretch.
Right.
But I think that pretty much covers the movie news. Did I miss anything? You find anything else anywhere?
Let's see here. No, I think that's it.
Okay. TV news, we talked about the Hellstrom and Ghost Rider series. There was a weird little bit of trivia about the Ghost Rider series that Gabriel Luna, who will be playing Robbie Reyes like he did in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., but there was confusion as to whether or not it'll still be that character. Like, it's going to be him being Robbie Reyes' version of the Ghost Rider, which he was in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., but are they just going to act like that never happened?
That's weird.
It's confusing to see what they're going to do with that, so I don't know. And then FX announced that they're renewing What We Do in the Shadows, which I have not watched, unfortunately. But I've been hearing good things.
Yeah, I haven't seen it. I definitely want to see that.
But just trying to see if there's anything else. I can't think of anything. I don't see anything. Jump into some video game news. Did you see Sony's new State of Play?
Hello?
Yeah. Yo, you there?
Oh, sorry. I'm not sure what's going on with the mic. No, I didn't. What was in it?
Okay. They showed a new Medieval trailer for the HD remaster, which I think looks pretty cool.
Okay.
They showed a big trailer for Monster Hunter World Iceborne, which is really it's DLC, but it's really an expansion, which I think is nice. It won't be standalone, which I get. It kind of sucks, but whatever. And then they showed some other like smaller things. They showed a Predator game where it looks, to me, Predator should be an asymmetric multiplayer game, like the Friday the 13th game was. One of you should be the Predator, and everybody else should be trying to survive.
Yeah.
I hope that's what they're doing with this. They didn't really show anything except that it's a thing. It's coming out next year. They showed a game called River Bond, which is a 4-player like hack and slash, but it's also got couch co-op, and I'm always down for a good couch co-op game.
Yeah.
It's coming out this summer. And then they showed like a little nature survival game. It's called Away, the survival series, where you play as a sugar glider and you try not to die.
That sounds cool.
It looks beautiful. Like, it looks fantastic. I know I'm never gonna play it just because I'll never get around to it. But it's it's an interesting idea. I'll give it that. And then they ended with a new trailer for the Final Fantasy VII remake, so we'll move on from that. No, we won't, because that looked awesome as hell.
I didn't see it. What?
It's okay. It showed, for one thing, it showed like actual gameplay, and it showed like it's very action RPG-ish. It's very much like 15. It's that style. It's not turn-based so much. But it's
okay.
It was just another, like, oh hey, by the way, we are still making this,
right.
And we're for real ready to talk about it now.
Is it even coming out on the PlayStation 4?
I doubt it.
Yeah.
They did say they're gonna announce more details about it next month, so I imagine that'll be for their next, like, not an E3, not a Nintendo Direct, but exactly that thing, state of play that they do.
Yeah.
Yeah. But, so I'm excited to see, they're like, hey, more details coming in June. Sweet. Bring it on. I want to know.
Yeah.
It is still going to be episodic, so I don't know exactly how that's going to work. I guess we'll find out more about that in June. I don't know.
Yeah. Okay.
Speaking of E3, Nintendo announced that their E3 Nintendo Direct will be June 11th at noon Eastern Time. So hopefully we find out more Pokemon stuff.
Yeah.
And then whatever else it is they're working on. Plus, I'm sure there'll be some kind of big surprise. There always is.
Yeah.
Let me see what else we got here. Oh, EA Access is finally coming to PlayStation.
Yeah.
It's coming in July. And I didn't realize EA Access is actually a pretty decent deal.
Oh, yeah.
Really...
now it is.
Yeah.
Now that they actually have games on it.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, like, you can play all the old Star Wars games, essentially, but it just depends on what platform. Like, on the PC, you have all the old Star Wars games there, but
yeah,
with Xbox, you have all the backwards compatibility. I don't know how that's going to work with PlayStation, because PlayStation doesn't have half those games.
That's where the problem's going to be. And also, this service is not transferable either. That's something else that I'm not crazy about.
Right. So, PC, that's great. Xbox, awesome. PlayStation, I'm going to wait and see, because it depends on what they have there for their library. Are they suddenly going to make some games backwards compatible? Like, suddenly they just figured it out? I doubt it.
Well, they've had, on PlayStation Now, there are PS3 games.
Yeah, but for example, are you going to be able to play Battlefront 2 on it? The old one.
I don't know.
Are you going to be able to play Jedi Knight Academy?
I don't know.
Outcast. You can on PC, you can on Xbox, you can on PlayStation, I assume, because it's not backwards compatible. And those games are, I guess you can download them on the PlayStation 4. I was going to say you're technically playing it, you're streaming it, but I guess you're not anymore.
Now, EA Access is downloads, yeah.
Yeah, so I don't know how that's going to work. Let's see what happens, but that's the only problem I see happening. Is that it's like you're not going to get the full library that you should.
Can understand that.
Yeah.
And then did you see that the Rocket League guys, Psyonix, were bought by Epic Games?
Yeah.
I think this is horrible. I think this is terrible news.
It's smart for them. They want to get more into the esports, and this is going to give them the money and the ability to do that. I think it's smart for them to do that.
I agree from a business standpoint. I just don't want Fortnite Rocket League. I don't think
it's going to be Fortnite Rocket League, but it's I think it's going to be its own thing. But they're going to have the money from Fortnite now to do that.
Yeah, you say that now.
I don't know. I guess everyone's going crazy for Epic now, but until they turn into EA, I'm not.
Give them time.
I'm optimistic. I know. I get it. If this time next year they're closing that studio down, I completely agree. But I mean, if it's just a financial thing at this point, why not?
Oh, I agree on paper from a business standpoint. Absolutely, makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
But this to me just says bad. I don't like it.
Yeah, the big guy buying the small guy. I get it. I definitely do.
Well, and not just any big guy either, but like, I mean, Epic used to make games, and now they make Fortnite. Like, I just don't like what Fortnite has become. That's all. Like, I'm one of those guys.
That's true.
That's just me. I'm the cranky old guy about this, which is fine. I'll take
I get it.
I'll take that heat. I don't mind. But and especially because Rocket League was just a massive out of nowhere success because it was so simple, and I just worry, whenever something like this happens, and usually I'm right, which is unfortunate, but I like the times where I'm wrong, and I always hope that's the case because I always assume the worst, but I don't have, and I don't mind. I know we're gonna get like a lot of like Fortnite skins and themes and cars and that kind of stuff in Rocket League, and I'm totally fine with that. No problem with that at all.
Now hear me out.
Okay.
100 cars dropped into. I'm just kidding.
Look, I'll tell you what. If they want to make that a separate mode, I'm down.
Oh yeah, you know that's coming.
Yeah, knock yourself out. Why the hell not? Who cares? Like, but
yeah, they made all kind of goofy kind of modes, the soccer mode, stuff like that. That's bound to happen.
Wait until they make a Twisted Metal knockoff like that, though.
Yeah.
Because that's what's coming. That's exactly what's coming.
Yeah, that should come. Let's see here. Okay, so yeah, reviews. I guess let's start with Detective Pikachu, man. What'd you think of the movie?
I enjoyed it. I really did.
Yes.
Yeah, it's if you went into this...
Well, hold on. Let's first of all, tell me about the plot armor of Detective Pikachu and the consistency... No, I'm just kidding. I'm just going over some of the Game of Thrones complaints.
I will, man. I want to smack so many of those people. Just honest to God.
Yeah, no. The inconsistency of... No, I'm just kidding. Man, just go to something and enjoy it. Like, if I took the same complaints that I'm hearing about Game of Thrones and put a Detective Pikachu... It's funny. The same people that love Detective Pikachu, you could throw all those complaints and be like, well, yeah, but I enjoyed it still. It's like, just enjoy it. Anyway, sorry. We'll get back.
Yeah, just like a thing for a change. It's fine to be critical of something, which I have, but it depends on your expectations.
Full spoilers, by the way. We're going to get into full spoilers for both Pikachu and Game of Thrones. And I want to throw that out right now because I'm going to spoil a big part of it real fast.
Yeah.
But just a heads up. So if you haven't seen Detective Pikachu, turn it off. Go watch the movie. It's amazing. It's fun. And we'll talk about Game of Thrones soon. But it's like if you sit there at the end of the movie and go, well, how did he not realize it was his voice the whole time? Just enjoy it. It's just a movie. You can't get caught up in that stuff.
The dude is still kind of thinking throughout the whole movie he may be hallucinating.
Exactly.
Like,
don't get lost in the sauce.
It's a perfectly reasonable, like, okay, sure, this Pikachu is talking to me. He's not really focused on the timbre of his voice.
And he probably hasn't heard his dad in 10 years.
That's the other thing,
Yeah. Anyway, man, I loved it too. I thought it was so much fun.
Yeah, it was great. And there was one guy in the group that I was there with who was not, the explanation of it's a kids movie was not good enough for him. Like, I think he wanted a mystery like Murder on the Orient Express. And I'm like, if that's what you expected, then you were doomed to be disappointed. Because that's not what this is ever going to be. It's a fun little kids mystery kind of movie that's not about the complexities and the ins and outs and the logic of, this is not freaking Sherlock Holmes.
Wes Anderson Pokemon movie.
Right? Like, that's it's
like you said, it is first and foremost a kids movie. It's a family movie. You're supposed to go to it and enjoy it and watch it through those goggles. And for that kind of movie, I don't think it could. I don't see how you could have done it any other way.
No, what they did worked, and
yeah,
the things that they did with the Pokemon, I enjoyed. My favorite parts of that movie were when they showed, like, oh, they messed up with these Pokemon real bad, with the lab and everything they did genetically. I mean, like the ones that they screwed with, especially those Torterra. Holy crap! Like,
That was so much fun to see.
They created an archipelago out of Pokemon. That's impressive. Like,
yeah, absolutely.
Like, that's legit what they did.
Yeah. Oh yeah. They gave life to these. How many Pokemon games have we played where there's some secret lab and there's some experimenting done, and you blow through it in 10 minutes or 20 minutes, and you don't really think about it. And they put those characters inside of a movie, and it was just fun to see. I loved it. The only part that kind of took me out of it, but that's when I had to remind myself, is a kids movie. Is who's the friend, the one who has the Psyduck?
The one that's completely useless for pretty much the entire movie, and like
right, the Harriet the Spy.
Yeah, she serves one purpose: to have a car.
Right.
That's the only thing she's good for in that entire movie.
And when she's first introduced,
oh god,
her
that
dialogue.
scene hurt. That scene hurt so much. Like,
it did hurt. But you know what? That's Pokemon.
And that's a kid. That is a kid trying their hardest to act like they think a hard-nosed journalist acts. And
that's most characters in a Pokemon game that you run into, and suddenly they are just eating up the scenery.
Yes, everybody is a ham, absolutely. And I was
and that's the first thing I thought of when I saw that. I thought, that is Pokemon. That is every character I've run across in Pokemon where you're like, okay, this person's going to go on some adventure with me, and they're eating up every scene, and they're just cranking it up to 10.
Yeah.
And you know what? I enjoyed it, and it was a mixture of that plus Ryan Reynolds' comedy and his humor, and Ryan Reynolds basically plays Ryan Reynolds in all of his movies now, and I'm okay with that.
And there's some, like, they dip into risque more than once.
Oh yeah, which is talking about putting stuff in their nose. I'm like, that's a cocaine reference.
And it's great because they don't let it go. It's not like, yeah, let's scrape my nose. Wait, that's not what I meant. I was talking about something else. Like, they actually say that, and I was like, okay, that was, that's putting a hat on a hat.
He put his finger in me. Like, just there's so many things where I'm just like, whoa, okay. But yeah, it works. Kids don't, it's a Pixar thing. They one ear out the other. They're not obscene with it, but the adults get it. And it was great, and the character designs look so much better in action, in the world. Man, every 2 seconds. And that's what I was telling my friend's kid. He's so excited to go see it. He's a huge Pokemon. I was going to say Pokemon head, but whatever you call Pokemon nerd, Pokemon kid, whatever. He's a fan. He's obsessed with it. And I'm like, I want to know if you know all of them. I want you to point them out and say them all in the theater. Because there's so many Gen 1s that I recognize, but there's so many where I'm like, I've seen that one before, like the Panda one and stuff.
Yeah.
But I had no idea. And this is one where the theater was just having a ball with it. You could hear the kids just loving anytime these characters came up on screen.
Yeah.
And it's one of those where, like, you got to go in with that kind of mentality. Is like, this is a kids movie. They're gonna have fun with it, like The Incredibles or something like that. You can't go in there thinking this is gonna be some serious think piece where you got to be quiet the whole time and walk out and you think about it for a couple weeks.
Right. No,
it's not that.
It's a fun Pokemon movie. Like,
it's a Pokemon movie, and the world is, when they start showing, the cities and the towns, and you're like, man, this is this world. I can't wait to see the other Pokemon movies, and that's why I think they put at the beginning of it Pokemon Detective Pikachu, because I think there's going to be other spin-off type movies, because I don't know if you can do Detective Pikachu again.
No, I don't think you can.
In the next one, they're like, well, it happened again. What
I think this story is one and done, and I am perfect with that. I think that's how it should be. I absolutely think that's how it should be.
I agree. I would definitely go see another one if some story reason why it happens again, and they're like, oh no, not another day like this. But if the next one is some guy's like Ash's journey or whatever, perfect. That's how you do it. You or James's journey or whatever, that thing we read before that they might do in any journey in any other kind of Pokemon movie. I'm down for now.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, they have now set the universe where it's just the only problem I could see having is they need to realize that Ryan Reynolds was a big part of this.
Yeah.
And whoever is in the next one, they have to have someone that has that kind of sense of humor to go along with it to help it.
Yeah.
It can't just be like full Pokemon goofy adventure. They got to have something like that in it to get the adults and everyone else on board, which I'm sure they're smart enough to do.
Yeah. Hey, look, they were smart enough to do this. Like
Yes.
you and I both talked about when they said, and it's Detective Pikachu. We went, boo.
Yes.
Like, this is
absolutely.
awful. Why did you do this? You suck. And
Yep.
and we're both first in line to be like, we're wrong. Our bad.
We're wrong.
Like,
Yep.
They
Absolutely.
They knew what they were doing. I give them that.
Yeah.
My favorite two Easter eggs in this were when they did the little bits about the Pokemon League. One of those trainers was red. Specifically.
Yes.
Like, absolutely, definitely
Yeah.
was supposed to be red from the games.
Yeah.
And my favorite other one, and I don't know who in the theater did the math on this real quick, when they talked about Mewtwo and said this Pokemon escaped the Kanto region 20 years ago. You know what happened 20 years ago?
Yep.
Pokemon the first movie came out.
Yep.
And I was like, that was a fantastic little, like, wink and a nod, and I appreciate that.
Yeah, no, yeah, absolutely. I remember specifically that part. I was like, oh wow, yeah, that's the events from the first game.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I think that they're kind of ignoring the anime canon, it seems like.
Yeah.
Which I'm okay with. I'm okay if they're like, no, these are game based.
Yeah.
I don't mind. I don't need continuity as long as as long as they don't directly contradict. I don't care if they go off and make their own thing. I don't give a damn.
Yeah, yeah. As long as they don't, say Psyduck's evolution is polymorph or something, or like they completely go off the rails.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, story wise, it's one of those things where it's a different medium. It's just like anything else. X-Men, Star Wars. It's a different medium. They're telling a story in a different. It's going to be different. And that I'm perfectly fine with that.
Yeah. I like that but I like that they kept a lot of what's become accepted. Oh, Pikachu's adorable, look at that. Oh, Psyduck's useless, look at that. Like, they've kept so much of that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Hell, I'd see a movie with Ryan Reynolds doing detective work in this city.
Yeah. No, I would too. Him and oh, help me out. His lieutenant, the guy who worked with him. Why can't I remember? Ken Watanabe. Like,
yes.
Yes, I'll watch that movie. Hell yes, I would.
Absolutely.
Them and Pikachu and Snubbull.
I want that TV show.
Yeah. Do that, like a little mini series for that. There's something that.
Yeah.
Oh wait, they're Warner Brothers, so they're putting it on their own soon to be doomed streaming service.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. But man, you could go all different places with this, and I hope they do.
And then they could just not like, okay, this was a story in the Pokemon universe. Here's another one that's completely not connected.
Right.
I'm good with that. Make a reference to it. Well, at least this isn't like what happened in Rhyme City. I know, right? That's crazy. Right. And then that's it. There's your connection.
Yeah, you can do a Ranger series. You can do all sorts of different things. You can do a Pokemon Snap type series where they're just like a photographer and suddenly they're dropped on an island and it's almost like Jurassic Park.
I'm telling you, man, that's look, you know, that's not the worst idea in the world.
It's not, yeah. You know? And then suddenly there's ancient Pokemon. Like you can get all kind of crazy with this.
There's how you get your unknown in this.
Yes,
like that's
and have just a fun adventure movie.
Yes.
Like you could do all sorts of things, and I think this opens it up, and I'm glad it's doing as well as it did. This could have came out and got 20 million, but it didn't. So I'm excited. I want to see more of this.
Yeah, no, I'm excited for what this, because with this being a success, now they'll be willing to go further out there with it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I'm glad this is going to wind up doing very well. Yeah.
Absolutely. I'm pumped for it. I want more of it. I hope they announce it in the next year or two, like whatever their plans are with this Pokemon series. But I think they're all just kind of waiting to see how this does.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I'm excited.
And then on the other hand.
Oh, you didn't like Game of Thrones?
I have, because I I know how to fix
right
this.
Off the bat,
like,
I absolutely love this episode.
I would have if they hadn't screwed up the build. Like this, listen to me, who's never written anything professionally in his life, being like, I know how they should have written this.
We can still be critical of it. I mean, you're not dismissive. Like, a lot of people are extremely dismissive of the writers and the showrunners as if they've never done anything in their life except have a show with more Emmys than any other scripted thing on television.
Right.
But it's okay to be constructive criticism against it. I think the biggest problem they have, and it's their fault, is the HBO wanted more episodes.
Yes.
And they said no. But then again, they've been on this for 10 years and they have Star Wars coming up. I don't know if I blame them.
Yeah, but this is what I was talking about earlier, where HBO said to them, how do you want to do this? And I think that, I think they got to a point where they're like, okay, we want to be done with this.
Right. Well, here's the thing. The criticism of the last 3 seasons where this is taking too long. There's a lot of nothing happening. And then when stuff starts happening, people are like, what's happening too fast? Stop it. Slow down.
I don't mind that things are happening fast. I mind
This could have been 2 seasons. Every these 6 episodes, I think if they spaced it out, could have been. I mean, look at the first 2 episodes of the season. People were complaining about how nothing was happening and how slow it was.
Yeah.
And episode 3 happens, and they were like, well, that was too fast. And they didn't kill off enough characters. And then this episode happens, and they're like, they're killing off my characters. I don't know. I don't think you can win with.
I think this season could have been fine if they had changed a little bit of time, a little bit of things that had happened, and a little bit of characterization from last season and beyond. Actually, because so I love the episode. Let me say this up front.
Yeah.
I enjoyed the hell out of this episode, and I liked what they did. I was
watching it thinking, are we ever going to see anything on this level of production? When the dragon was flying over the city and destroying things, you're just lost in it.
Yeah,
you're just like, this is a city that we've seen for 8 seasons now. We never really got to see the people unless they were going crazy, killing Ned, or joining or throwing mud at the Queen. But now we really got a citizen's point of view level. And then, of course, they had to do it through Arya, one of our heroes. But it was just one part of your brain is telling you that this is frightening and this is incredibly visceral. But the other part of my brain was just going nuts because we're getting this level of television.
Yes, agreed.
And production, and man, I love the behind the scenes stuff on how they do this. And they're like, no other production has ever set this many people on fire for one thing. Like, they broke the record for one episode of setting how many people on fire. Stuff like the behind the scenes just fascinates me. And I don't know if we're gonna get ever anything like that again. Game of Thrones was able to have that kind of money because of what they've done, but man, I hope The Mandalorian gets that kind of level. I hope, The Wheel of Time, all these other shows do, because, man, it's breathtaking. Regardless of what you think of the writing and all that other stuff, like you said, you have to admit the level of quality is just astronomical at this point.
There's no, you can't question the production value and effort of this team. There's no, you can hate the direction of the show and everything that they've done all you want. You cannot deny the effects and the production on the show. Never. Never. It's amazing.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. But yeah, man, so sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Go ahead.
No, you're fine. I'm just, I liked the Mad Queen. I liked the Mad Dragon Riding Queen. I did, but she didn't earn it the way that they wrote this. Because it just
she totally did. Why do you think she doesn't earn it?
Because the way that they have had her character this last season and a half, it's all been about her not wanting to do exactly this.
Well, no, I think,
and that's what I have a problem.
I'm wondering if my point of view is different because I watched every episode in the last few months.
As did I.
Oh, you did too? Okay.
Yes.
Well, then I think it's completely earned because since day one, they have been talking about how
Fire and Blood.
Right, exactly. Fire and Blood. She could be just as bad as her father. And every time that's come across, she's had advisor after good advise her, stop her. and restrain her. Scene after scene, they've restrained her, and she's had Jorah, she's had all of them. She had what's his name? He was a part of the Knight's Guard.
Selmy, Barristan Selmy.
Yeah. There's like a whole scene where he's like, have restraint because your father, the Mad King, and she's like, well, that's just a lie. And he's like, no, it wasn't.
Yeah.
Like, I know that's what you think because your brother told you it was a lie the whole time, but it wasn't. They have been laying these breadcrumbs for 10 years now.
I except for the last year and a half. That's
no, but they have the last year and a half. That's what I mean is like
not
they
really.
They have pushed her to she has had every single one of her advisors ripped from her. 2 of her dragons in the last 2 seasons killed in front of her. She had what's her name?
Missandei.
No, not Missandei. The older lady, the one from Hightower, Highgarden.
Olenna.
Yeah, she straight up told her,
be a dragon.
Be a dragon. These people are sheep. They are not going to do anything. They're not going to listen to you. They only understand fear. And I think this was the tipping point.
I absolutely agree with everything that you're saying. But...
And any of these things, if any of these things happened differently, she could have not done that. And that's, I think they even say that in like the behind the scenes stuff, is they're like, all of these things that have happened to her, if one of those things might have ended up differently, it might have changed this. And I like that. I mean, I like, I've said this kind of before, is like, not everyone who is evil is born evil. This type of stuff happens and they just turn, especially in the matter of a war. And I loved that. I liked that they set it up where you could not really, it had to make sense for Tyrion and Jon and all of these other characters to get behind her for these last few seasons. They had to show her as this thing coming for good, or else none of that would have worked. If they did show her slowly turning, I think they would have been way more against joining her, but they had to have her how she was in order for her to take on to help Jon and then fall in love and all that other stuff, or none of that would have made sense. He would have been way more like, wait a second. And I don't know. I guess I think they've been laying this out forever. It's the chosen one prophecy. This is a better written Anakin Skywalker, where they're like, this guy could be for good, but what if he's not? And they've been saying that forever, especially Varys this season, where he's like, wait a second, I made a big mistake.
But here's my problem. I agree with that up until she gets to Dragonstone. Because she has shown cruelty. I mean, look what she did to, what was it, the Old Masters in Yunkai?
Crucified them.
Yes, like that was cruel. That wasn't, what did she say? I have met injustice with justice. No, that was straight up freaking cruel.
But have you?
I'm
not ever known someone to just snap?
Not like that. No.
It's like, well, it's like we have a teenage girl who has had all of these advisors around her forever, and she has 3 nuclear warheads.
Yeah, but and
all she knows is that she's this what's the word? I'm terrible. She feels entitlement. She's a teenage girl with entitlement, 3 nuclear warheads. She's had people around her to calm her down, and now she has nothing.
Yeah, but
I heard this before, and I thought this was interesting. What if she was a man? Would people be having the same?
Yes, I would.
Would they be going, well, how could we didn't see this happening?
I would. Yes, I absolutely would. Because
I think a lot of people wouldn't. I think Anakin Skywalker didn't get these complaints, and he did it in a few hours.
But there's the thing, though. They built the fear in him leading up to it, and this is where my complaint comes in. Starting last season, ever since she got to Dragonstone, she hasn't been, like, if they had gone straight from how she was in Slaver's Bay, in Marine, and all of that stuff, if she had gone straight from that to this, with no in-between, absolutely would have made sense.
But I mean, she's been through the ringer, man.
Yeah, but hang on. When she gets to Dragonstone, that whole last season, up until she loses Viserion, has been about trying to not be exactly this. And she's been told that, and she's been trying to find that. She falls in love with Jon, and they humanize the hell out of her. They really do bring her back to that. And then after she loses Viserion, she doesn't lose her shit. That's where she should have started to go back in decline, and she didn't. And that's where I started to...
I think she did, though.
No, not the way she should have. Not the way that any character in that situation should have to lead to this point. Because after Viserion, she should have just absolutely gone near ballistic. Should have been pulled back. But should have been shown as more violent. They should have shown more of the old, crucify the old masters, Daenerys. They should have shown.
Yeah, I think that's where I started to see, especially with Tyrion. She was, she lost her dragon, everything. Like that's especially where I started to see her get kind of.
Nah,
nuts.
it didn't go that way though, because she stayed fairly solid. And again, a part of this is because... I don't
know, man. I've seen her frustrated since she's come to Westeros.
Yeah, but frustrated is not cause for what happens. Because then, if she was going to do this, when she was going to do this, it should have been immediately after Missandei. That should have been that's where somebody like that just snaps.
Well, that's what did happen.
No, it wasn't, because she took her vengeance
I think they showed it. When they showed her walking away, and you see her face, and that's how it ends. To me, that's especially when Missandei died.
Yeah,
that was it. I knew the city was going to burn immediately.
But
right then and there, I knew that there was no going back. You killed her dragon that episode. You killed her best friend. Grey Worm. That's all she had. That's all Grey Worm had.
Yeah.
I knew that she had nothing left. She had literally nothing left.
I agree with you, but the problem is that there's a problem of too much space and not enough space at the same time. Because if they had an episode in between to show...
No, I completely agree. This should have been 2 seasons.
Right, and here's where this episode, this imaginary episode in between, shows her demanding this and screaming for that, and this is where we get Fire and Blood, and they are trying to rein her in and pull her in, and they're realizing that they can't do it, and then you get Varys...
Well, see, I guess that's just how I saw it, was that she had no one around her, no one to calm her down. Jon has betrayed her. Everyone has betrayed her. And when she's sitting on top of that dragon and she's looking at the keep and she's looking at the castle that her ancestors built 300 years ago.
I don't buy that
bullshit.
She
saw Cersei giving up. She said, "Fuck no! I am burning everything to the ground." It is.
There is why it's undeserved. I hated hearing the writers backtrack on this. They saw that thing they built 300 years. That was such bullshit to me.
That's not bullshit. That's exactly what happened.
No, then destroy the castle. If she had in that moment looked at the Red Keep and seen all of this and felt everything that they felt,
she had enough.
Then
I saw
then she flies out and destroys the Red Keep and burns it to absolute cinders. I am fine with that. I believe that. I think that would have been perfectly suited.
I think this tells a better story. I think this leaves it in such a much more interesting place.
No, because she had no, even at her cruelest back in Yunkai.
So halfway through the episode, she goes and destroys the Red Keep, and they live happily ever after. I don't know. I think this just tells such a more interesting story.
No, because
I loved that they should. They talked about that in the behind the scenes, where now Jon is like, "Wait a second, are we the bad guys now?" And that conflict, and George R. R. Martin, and what baffles me is people think that this isn't how it's going to end in the books, because he has said numerous times that war is not something that should be glorified. This is not that kind of story,
right?
And that they knew well in advance exactly how he's going to end it. They knew all the major plot points. How they get there might be different, and that's why the book might be much better, because in the book you can tell that story.
Yes, she will have earned this in the book, because I believe there will be more time. And I don't... look, go back to Yunkai, where it was, crucify the old masters, kill the slave owners, free the slaves.
Yes.
But what did she explicitly say? Hurt no innocent people. That's why I have a...
That's what makes this so tragic.
No, this is not tragic. This is why this doesn't make sense, is because she goes street by street and kills everyone.
She becomes the very thing she set out against. And that's why it's...
No. Not like this. Not
You
like
don't think
this.
so?
Not this does not. That's why this doesn't make sense. If there had been, if I in the way that they set this up, if she had flown out and I think this
Everyone is the hero of their own story. She thinks she's doing the right thing because she thinks that for generations to come, they are going to fear her. No one is ever going to want to come against her. In her own head, she's thinking that.
I agree with that, but
and I think in her head she's doing the right thing. And who knows? Maybe the next episode she's like, "Hey, I fucked up. I had a moment of whatever." But
then that's
going
to be even worse.
Like, I don't know. I loved it. I personally don't need another 2 seasons to show it, but I think it would have been a lot better for a lot of other people to see that.
What needed? No, she gone out, because I would have loved for the Hubers to have worked against her, for her to just say to have that. But more immediately. I wanted it to be for her to have looked at the Red Keep and find with that writer nonsense they wanted to spout, and she saw this and was filled with rage, and that's why she killed millions of children because she saw a castle. Like, that's stupid to me. I'm sorry.
I like that.
No,
and I think in a book it might be written like that. And people go, well, that makes sense.
Because in the book, she'll have been more...
in a TV show. You can't hear in her head.
But in the book, it will have been built up more that she is crazy. And then, if that sets her off like that, it will have made more sense. But this, for her to have looked at the Red Keep and gone nuts, it would have made sense.
They specifically, before the episode, when they say previously or whatever on it, they show the scene where he's like, "Don't wake the dragon," and that's just they've been setting this up forever.
Hang on, because this should have been it should have been, she takes off at the Red Keep, she's going to destroy this and kill Cersei, and that's fine. She's going to leave the innocents because they haven't done anything, and that's her old, be cruel to the people she thinks deserve cruelty.
But that's what I'm saying. But hang on, it's we've been cheering her on doing a lot of violence. It's kind of like the Dexter thing. We've been cheering her on doing all these violent things. But what happens when that turns?
Yeah, but it wasn't earned against the people.
I think it's earned. I don't know.
No, because there was no reason for the people to have earned it in anything they showed in the show. Now, here's how I would have done this differently. When they were at
she said this multiple times, that she will burn the cities to the ground.
Yes, but everybody has been telling her, these people...
And no one's there to tell her that anymore.
Tyrion's still there. Tyrion was begging her.
Tyrion has betrayed her. She's not listening to Tyrion. Tyrion has failed numerous times.
But here's the thing.
And he's not Jorah. He's not...
And I agree with this. I agree with that too, but I still... There needed to be more... When they were at, Dragon's Keep, or wherever it was, when they brought the White in, and they were within earshot of King's Landing and all that. Had there been a moment where somebody there had noticed, people were still hating Targaryens, something that was drilled into her since she was attempted to be assassinated way back in season 1. The lesson she learned back then, Westerosi hate Targaryens, and that stuck with her, but it was never explored. Had they brought that back around when she comes back, she's like, yeah, she understands the people don't love her, but I would have, had they shown that more, had they gone a little more in depth to how much people in King's Landing could have been twisted to absolutely just hate the idea of Targaryens.
I think for a lot of people in the story, she's their hero, and she's this character, and she wasn't created to be anyone's hero.
No, but
her character was not created for that purpose.
No, but she clearly hasn't been characterized as an absolute indiscriminate slaughterer either.
Yeah, and neither was Anakin until he killed all of those sand people either. That's my point, is that there is always, for these type of characters and tropes, there's always going to be a turn, whether it's more abrupt than other. You can't say that they haven't been leading to this and warning not only her but the viewers for years now. And it's like, if it happened 2 seasons from now or now, it was still always going to happen in the writer's eyes.
Yeah, but Anakin killed the Sand People because they killed his mom. So yes, he snaps.
They killed her whole family. They've killed everything. They killed her dragons. They've killed her best friend in front of her.
The children in Westeros didn't do that.
She did, and she represents that city, and she told her, especially at the beginning of the season, she said, "I will warn them. I will burn the city to the ground." Like she said that numerous times.
Yeah, but she didn't warn the people, which is something that she did when she was in Essos.
She came out in front of the walls with Tyrion and said, we're coming."
Yes, which she said.
What do you think's gonna happen? We have a dragon.
Which she said to Cersei, who was herself certifiable and didn't care. She didn't care either. There was no. The people had not been shown to do anything to deserve it. All they needed. Give me.
I agree. No, it's what she did was terrible.
Yes,
she's completely insane for what she did.
Yes.
But I understand why it happened.
No, I'll tell you. Give me one scene somewhere where
but you don't need a frog to tell someone that fear leads to anger for people to understand it.
No, but you do need to give me something to understand why she burned the entire city to the ground. I know they've been talking about it. I know she's been saying that she would do it, but they have also tried to show that she wouldn't do this because she values innocent life. She values freeing slaves. Right. So for her to
there's a quote
for her to have any justification of this, even in her mind, cracked and warped and bent because she's lost everything. I agree. She's on that tipping point. But there needed to be something of the people doing something. I don't care how trivial or ridiculous it is against the idea of a Targaryen. Have a report even of somebody organizing a thing where they burn the Targaryen banner and an effigy of a dragon or something, so that they can use that as a way to warp her perception of, yes, guess what? The people still don't want you here.
I think they did a very good job of that the previous episode when they showed everyone cheering on Jon Snow, that he's the king. Look at him ride the dragon. Look at this man. And she saw that these people are never going to love her. She is an outside invader in their eyes, and I don't know. I guess I see it differently. I see that they have been setting this up from day one, especially in the last season. I see that she's become more and more isolated.
Agreed.
And alone, and not just frustrated, but she has been slowly everything has been taken from her, and then when Jon just when he rejects her and she goes, violence it is. There were so many signs. There's an interview I saw with George R. Martin that kind of it reminds me of this, where he was saying that, and I'm summarizing here, he said the good and evil is not when it's he says it's great in fantasy when it's the Dark Lord versus the White Knight. That's fine and all, but he liked it where the battle of good and evil takes place in the human heart, and that's a better story than the other kind. That someone that it could go either way, and we see that with multiple characters, and we saw that with Ned, and he ended up dead within the first season. We see that with Jon. We see Jon running through the streets, and it's like, oh shit, like we're now on the bad side. What's going to happen in the next episode? And we saw that with her. We saw her be so good for so long and do so many good things. But just like how many different real world things have we seen where we think it's really good, but when you kind of peel back the layers, it's like, how bad could this get? Look at our government, for example. Like, how many good intentions have been soured because people they're too greedy, they're too powerful, they I little bit more. And that's what I saw with her, I guess.
Agreed.
I think it would have been so good if they had a season or two to show that, like what you're saying.
Yes, because
that would have made so many more people happy. But me, I didn't need that. I don't need that. I was perfectly fine with them showing her getting so frustrated when she was looking at the keep. Before I saw that behind the scenes stuff, my thought process was, she's not going to let Cersei out that easy.
Agreed.
And she's going to burn everything down in that city and to make sure that she's dead, and that the message is loud and clear that she's here, and she will. And this is exactly what her ancestors did. When he came into town, he was actually a little bit more kinder. He basically went up to cities. He went to the north and he said, bend the knee or I'm going to burn everything to the ground. And the people who did not bend their knee burned the entire castle. what's that one castle, that haunted one? He burned it all to the ground and then he gave it to someone else.
Was it Harrenhal?
Harrenhal, yes. For example, the Bartharians, or no, my mind just went straight. Not Bartharians, the
Baratheons. Is that what you're looking for?
Baratheons, yes, the Baratheons. Their entire family inherited that region, that keep, and that symbol because Aegon the Conqueror went up to that keep at Storm's End, and they said, no, we're gonna fight you. They ended up dying. He ended up killing everyone in that city, and ended up giving it to the Baratheons. So like this is not far fetched from what her ancestors did.
I agree. My thing is, my only critique of this, I don't mind her going crazy because you're right. All of the signs. Maybe that's what I'm getting
caught up on. So yeah. I'm sorry. You're not critiquing.
All of the signs were there that she would do this, except the part where she burns the city down. That's the piece that's missing. Yeah. Had they had her, instead of parlay with Cersei, fly her dragon and land it in the middle of the city and make that big proclamation. Drive out Cersei yourselves, or I will return and destroy everything. And then fly off. And what happens? The Westerosi don't give a damn. She's a Targaryen. They hate Targaryens and this and that. So they don't. So Cersei remains. And then the city... and there's a fight, and the city surrenders, but she looks, and she just knows Cersei's still there. The people didn't listen. They didn't do it. So then fine. Fire and blood it is. That is how you do that. Add that one little element and all of this makes perfect sense. She still goes mad. She's still crazed because nobody in their right mind would have done this anyway. But
I agree. I could see why that would be, but man, to me it's the heat of the moment. It was now or never that she was going to do that, and I think she just fucking snapped. I loved it.
The whole city didn't deserve it though. The way they set this up.
Totally, they didn't deserve it. Absolutely.
Yeah, and there was no, because
that's what makes it so frightening. That's what makes it so. But one of my favorite scenes was when Jon kills his own guy that was trying to rape somebody.
Yeah.
And I've listened to a bazillion George R.R. Martin interviews in the last few weeks, and when I saw that scene, it reminded me of something he talked about, where he was like. People were getting on to him about how violent his movies are and how whatever. And he was talking about, he was like, look, for years, especially the kind of the time frame that I'm working with, like the medieval kind of, he's like, when wars were raged, usually the end of it was the rape and sacking of a city. That's just how it was.
Yeah, that was just it. Yeah.
That's exactly what happened. And war is not supposed to be, this, he doesn't like war. He got out of the Vietnam. War is not something that he, I don't know the right word, but it's not this honor thing or whatever. And I think they portrayed that perfectly with Jon. Like, I am so curious.
Yeah.
What happens with Jon after this? Now, let me ask you, when you were watching it, and Arya was walking through the city, and she saw like a bunch of burned people. I could have sworn I saw like Jon's hilt of his sword.
No,
during one of those scenes.
It was that girl, the one that they showed. It was the girl. It was the girl had a little toy horse.
Oh, so that was like her hand holding the horse.
Yeah, because that was the mother and daughter that she tried to save but couldn't.
Right.
That's who she was looking at.
Yeah.
And then I'm a sucker for overt biblical apocalyptic imagery.
That threw some people off. They really hated that, but I love that.
I did too, because that's what Arya became. She has, I looked and beheld a pale horse, and the name that sat on it was Death. And that's what's going to happen. It's going to be Arya Stark, Queenslayer. Like, I guarantee.
I would love if at the end there she would have just said Daenerys, like just added.
That would have been just stand there holding that and just kind of looked up and gone Daenerys Targaryen. and gotten on her
ended it
horse.
right there.
Yes, that would have been great. I was waiting for that, really, but
Me too. I think and they actually talked about this in the afterwards show. Is there's a lot of things they think fans are expecting that they have to rein back on, because then it would just be predictable.
yeah,
But I'm glad, and they were talking about that for the Hound and his brother, and I'm glad they didn't hold back with that, because I think people would have been super disappointed, even more than they were with the Daenerys stuff, if that didn't happen or if it was weak.
That was how that had to be. I have no problems with how that wound up at all.
Bro, I got Star Wars vibes with that.
Yes.
He looked like Vader.
Yes.
Just taking stuff off, and he couldn't hurt him.
Yep.
It was terrifying.
Yeah, that was exactly how that needed to be. I don't,
And the scene with him and Air, as much as I would love them to have their own spin-off series, and I was hoping that the show would end and they would go off on an adventure and it'd be announced, hey, we got a spin-off show with these two guys. I'm glad that it ended with him telling her, like, you can't go past here.
Yeah.
And he finally got through to her when no one else could.
Yeah.
That if you keep down this path, it's just going to lead to death. I thought that was so good. And also more importantly than the Cersei and Jaime thing, the Jaime and Tyrion ending and his goodbye to him.
Yeah, damn.
Yeah, and I think anyone who's ever felt like the outsider or, the crippled or the bastard or whatever, that had to hit for them as well. That scene where he was like, you were the only one that didn't call me a monster or didn't treat me differently. And that was just so powerful. That was such a good scene between them two.
Yeah.
And it needed to happen. I loved that. I thought that was fantastic. Once that scene happened, I was like, well, they're never seeing each other again. That was the end of that.
Yeah.
With Jaime and what's his face?
Euron. Yeah.
Euron. I thought that fight scene was awesome. I saw a lot of people saying it was contrived, and it totally was. I mean, he just washes up on shore.
Yeah, but I mean,
It's I mean, that's one of the things where people are like, they were talking about plot armor and this being contrived, and I'm like, well, don't ever watch Lord of the Rings or Star Wars or play any video games, Elder Scrolls. You can't enjoy anything at that point if you're gonna be
right.
Some that much.
Some things are just meant to happen at a certain point. Like
exactly, and if it didn't happen, people would be like, well, we didn't get that satisfied.
Exactly, that's the other side of that coin. People were either going to be unhappy because they made it that far and that had to happen, or they were going to be unhappy because that didn't happen. Right?
Exactly. Now, do you think he escaped? Do you think he got on that boat?
Who, Euron?
Yeah.
Nah, he's dead.
I think he's dead, too.
I think he's there and bled out, and that's it. That's the end of Euron.
Yeah. Oh yeah, and I fucking killed Jaime Lannister.
I really love that because that's true to his character he was in it for himself and that's it. He didn't care what anybody else thought. He wanted his own satisfaction. That was it. That was all he ever wanted. He didn't want a legacy. He didn't care. He didn't want to sleep with Cersei because it made him better. He did it because he wanted to.
Yep.
So at the very end, he's laying there dying, bleeding out, stabbed through the gut. All he cares about is his satisfaction with what he did. Yeah. It was perfect for his character. It was.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Absolutely.
And
this is one of those episodes where I went back and watched numerous times, and it's so good. I completely understand most people's criticism of it, especially like what you were saying, where we needed way more time to build up to this and to kind of show more of a turn and stuff like that.
I would have loved my only problem is that they spent so much of the last season and a half, counting half of this season, making her look like she was actually restrained. I would have liked to have seen her just subtly. It doesn't have to be overt, but subtly more cruel, especially once she got to Dragonstone.
Yes.
When she was out...
I think they were trying to do that with the Tullys, where they burned them, but it didn't pay off like what you're saying. It didn't make her look crazy. It just kind of made it look like...
It was like, well, that was just...
soldiers.
Yeah, exactly. Right. And because the problem with that scene, this one in particular is something I would have changed. 2 scenes. One is because she looked remorseful that the brother also... just said, no, screw this, I'm standing with my father. She showed remorse. Like, she still killed them both, but she showed remorse. That scene, if they were going to lead to this, should have been more like, well, all right, then, your call. And then that be the end of it. And have her been more callous about that. Yeah. Instead of like, I'm very sorry. Even when she went to Sam, and she was apologetic about, look, yeah, they sided against me, and this happened, but you could tell there was still some remorse there.
Right.
That shouldn't have been there.
No, I get it. I totally get it. Yeah. Instead of we saw Walter White go to downfall in however many seasons, so I totally understand that.
That's the thing that I would have loved to have seen would be just more subtlety in the build up to that. Her actions in the North should have been a bit more standoffish,
And it sucks, man. I think that moving forward, years down the road, I think people are going to look back at the show. They're going to obviously look at it and go, that is a milestone in television. But at the same time, they're going to go, what a tragedy is that the last few seasons couldn't have been stretched out a little bit longer, just to pad it in a little bit, to add those little extra things.
The things that made the first handful of seasons so fantastic. Absolutely. The character moments. And this is why, this is going back to what I said earlier with them making Star Wars movies. And I want Disney to tell them, no, you're working on our timetable.
Oh, I think they will.
Because
Kathleen Kennedy, she I think they'll rein them in. Plus, they have movies are different. Like they have probably up to 3 hours at the max to tell a story. And what I was reading was interesting because it said it wasn't necessarily a trilogy. It was more just 3 movies set in the same time frame, which is interesting.
That's curious, yeah.
Yeah, because if we all think it's going to be KOTOR, but what if it's not?
I don't think it is.
Yeah, I would love it to not be that same story. I don't want to see the same story put out into. I want to see something different, maybe set in the same time frame. But honestly, I wish they had all new characters to play with, so people can't go, well, you screwed up this character from the video game I played 25 years ago. They didn't do this exact thing. Like, I don't want that. I want it to be all new characters.
Yeah.
And that's the other thing is like. We already went through it with The Last Jedi. And now that Game of Thrones is so divisive this last season, and just the toxicity on the internet of people just literally, they're calling them the worst people ever, that they're the worst writers, they don't know how to write like they're so I don't know.
And that was why I prefaced this whole thing with like, by the way, I've never written anything professionally in my life. But
right.
Here's where I think they could have tweaked some things. And I do mean them because they said in interviews like, no, we're ending this on our timetable. And I think that's slightly a mistake.
Well,
I think that
HBO said we wanted more episodes, and they were like, no, we see it done in this many episodes.
I think that another had they just made her subtly more cruel as she progressed through the last season and a half, and then given I like what you said, the call back to her ancestors, which is something she could have learned from Viserys. They would, instead of, have her after, she goes to the parley with Cersei, they kill Missandei. So then
she had to have learned of that. Because, she straight up says fire and blood, and that is her. Yes, that's what her family.
Those are the words.
Words are. So
then after she kills Missandei, have Daenerys get on Drogon, fly into the middle of King's Landing, and make that proclamation, and then leave. You have until should I return and Cersei is not, and you have not driven Cersei from this city, then I will destroy you all with fire and blood, and leave. And now this whole thing is justified. Absolutely, she's still gone mad. It's not sane, but narratively it makes sense.
And see, a lot of the complaints I see online, you say it beautifully. What you're saying makes complete sense to me. A lot of people don't like that she turned because she was the good guy in their eyes.
Boo! I have no problem with her turning because like you said, you have to have seen it from she started with saying, I will take what is mine with fire and blood. She said those words to the Spice King.
Like, I saw people upset that they named their kids Khaleesi, and they're like, well, this is fucked up. You betrayed me.
That's not, when she looks at the Spice King, she straight up says, I will take what is mine with fire and blood. Like,
right.
it is there from the beginning. When she talks about how she and Khal Drogo are going to take the Dothraki and ride across and raise the cities. Like, she is a conqueror in her blood. And she has to be taught how to not be as crazy as her father was. And you're right, as she gets more isolated, she doesn't have the rational outside voices.
It's one of those things, like, if oh, sorry, man, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, you're right. There's just narratively, there was just a little bit missing. It makes sense where she wound up. It absolutely does. There was just...
to me, and I always relate back to Star Wars. This is, what if Qui-Gon Jinn lived to train, to train Anakin? Would he have went to the dark side? Probably not.
No, probably not at all.
But that was, what, 17 years or however long? Where this is, she lost everybody, and then there wasn't that time to tell the story of her turning. So I completely understand.
Right. But there was
also... we should have seen a little bit more of her lose it.
Just that's all I need. Just some subtle lines. There was one line that I absolutely hate, and I saw somebody put a thing up earlier about it. I did not return to be... I'm not here to be Queen of the Ashes. If you just erase that line. Get rid of that line, because that line is problematic to me. That's emblematic of what I think is the problem with...
In her head, she did it. But that's the thing, is no one... I completely agree. I actually like the line. It's because I don't think anyone that does evil sets out to be evil. In their head, they probably tell themselves, for someone to drive their car through a 7-Eleven window, I think for all the years they're growing up, they never think that they would ever turn into that. And something happens. Someone cheats on them. Something happens to their kids. Something completely unimaginable happens where they never thought they would see themselves in that situation. Does that make sense? And I think
absolutely.
For us, as sane people, we think, well, how could anyone do that? How can anyone look at that city and think, well, I'll just burn everyone to the ground? It's not supposed to be logical. When someone does something on that much cruelty, it's not supposed to make sense. It's not supposed to be logical. She just fucking snapped, and she became everything she hated, everything she did not want to become. And I think that's what's so tragic about it, and that's why I love about it.
I agree. I think that is part of it, that people want it to make rational sense.
How many presidents do you think went into the office thinking, well, I'm not going to be evil, I'm not going to be this, I'm not going to be that, and by the end of their term, they're like, what the fuck have I done?
And how many still don't think
people
that...
in power.
People in power in general. Like, just... They don't think that they're evil, awful people. And but here's the thing. It's never, like her burning the city was never supposed to make, like, rational sense.
Right.
But it should have made narrative sense. Like, we should have been able to see her insanity coming better than what we did. Yeah, they planted breadcrumbs and they showed this, but there were too many ways that it softened. And the snap, like, if the thing that snaps is this city full of innocent people surrendering to her armies and her awesome power, and so then she decides to kill them, that doesn't make narrative sense. The city not rising up to overthrow a queen that they are absolutely terrified of and has shown no mercy to them whatsoever, that makes narrative sense, but not rational sense, because of course the people...
I think we have a different point of view that the citizens have of the queen than what we have of the queen. We've played God, kind of looking in on her life, but the citizens only, who knows what they think. We've only known what they think because of what they've shown and what they've talked about.
Well, let me say this though. I think that if you were an average King's Landing person, you didn't really care because your life sucked anyway.
But at the same time, they've been brainwashed, and propaganda has been out there that this crazy dragon lady is going to come down and burn all of you alive, and that's what happened.
And I agreed, and I think that's why I think it would have helped narratively to have shown just a shade more of that. I don't need an episode in the life of a King's Landing baker. I don't need that. But
oh man, I would love that TV show. I'd watch that. The life and adventures of the King's Landing Baker.
There you go, HBO. You can have that one too. But just put my name on it somewhere. Story by.
Then one day he says, "Wait a second, there's a dragon here."
But just that's why I would have loved a scene with that proclamation, because it's completely irrational to demand that city rise up and overthrow this queen who lives in a fortress at the other end with all of these guards and this abomination.
That's what they told her. That's what all of her advisors said.
Exactly.
Like,
but
you don't understand how this works.
Yeah, and she blew up the church.
Yeah.
Like, they remember that, so they're terrified as hell of her. I'm certain in that, which is why it makes no rational sense for Daenerys to have expected that to have happened.
You're actually turning me around on it. It makes sense that she uses fire and blood, because that's all these people. That's all these people know is fear.
Yeah.
And that's what what's her face told her last season is like, look, none of these lords are going to respect you by being polite. You have to.
Yeah.
You have to show fear, and that's what she did.
It just made, and that's my thing. If after Missandei had been executed, she gets on Drogon, she flies into town, and demands they drive out Cersei.
Well, no, I think she had to be tactical. That's how she survived the attack with her dragon, is that she had to plan that out especially with the sun, where it was at. It was, couldn't see.
But there again, that's the thing of where she snaps. So tactical goes out the window, and that in that moment would have been, now she is the Mad Queen.
Seen that she goes off of emotion. I mean, that's what happened in the third one, and it's not saying, well, she's a woman, she's going off emotion. John did the same thing. John saw his brother in the middle of the field. He ran out there.
Yeah.
He's most of his stuff is based off of emotion, and it got him killed.
Yeah.
So I'm fascinated to see how they wrap this up. How what John's gonna and Arya's gonna do, what Sansa's gonna do. She's gonna be heading to the north. That Sansa, that's all coming to a head. I liked Varys. They played with my emotion, because as much as I say we saw this coming at the beginning of this episode, I was hoping that wasn't going to happen. I was right there with Varys saying, "I hope you're right." And I was thinking, man, how could he betray her like that?
Because he saw it. Saw it, yep. And I know they're saying that should have been the setup. We all should have known it was coming because of that. But again,
I was right there with it. I was right there with Tyrion. I was literally on the same page with him, going, well, she can't turn evil. She's not going to do that. It's all been set up, and we've been told that forever.
Yeah.
And she's not going to do that. And that's why I think it made it so powerful when she did.
Yeah.
Is because even I was like, fuck.
Yeah. And Varys...
for an hour, I'm like, fuck.
Varys was working off of, the people admire Jon Snow. They don't admire Daenerys. And that's been my problem.
Plus, he said this for a while, though. I think it's really important. He mentioned, I've seen more kings than any other living person. Or I've ruled under more kings than any other living person, and he has. He has been all the way there since the Mad King, and he saw how that happened.
Right. And I think that could have been a bigger setup, because his explicit purpose of this was based on Jon Snow is a more solid, more trusted, more beloved person. Instead of the other way around, as it should have been, which is Daenerys is potentially more cruel and more prone to Targaryen fits of madness. Had that been what was emphasized...
Not necessarily, because he was ready to turn on her before he knew the information about Jon.
Yes,
he didn't know that until Tyrion told him.
Yeah, but I don't think he was... on that. Here's my thing.
That's what pushed it. That's what was like, okay, here's an actual resolution.
That's fair. But I
think he saw the problem. He just didn't have well, how do we fix this?
Yeah, it should have been framed that way, though. That's another, failure of how her arc was set up, was that it wasn't about her being crazy so much as it was about there was a better choice. It should have been framed differently. I look at that narratively. It should have been, I think she's too much like her father. I think power will corrupt because he, he would have known everything that happened in Essos. He would have known all of this. And I think
I think he, like the audience, wanted to believe that she had all the good intentions and that she was a kind leader, because he said that multiple times.
Yeah.
But there has always been that underlining, like, well, she's also chosen violence a lot. And I don't know. Like, it all goes back to them having more time and a few more episodes of showing that, and it not just being this 180 real fast. I think if they would have showed a lot more of that, it would have made a lot more sense. But I mean, at the same time, I loved how I went from, man, how could he betray her? Of course, Tyrion. It's tragic. Tyrion, this is the guy who saved him. This is the guy who smuggled him out of King's Landing.
Yeah.
And here he is turning him in, knowing it's for his death. And that was so sad. That it was him that betrayed him. But I don't know, man. I'm curious how it's going to wrap up. I know people are they're going to be upset no matter what happens.
Yeah.
But I do hope that they wrap it up in a satisfying way.
It won't be like and I don't mean that from from an audience standpoint. I don't mean the audience won't be satisfied. I mean the story won't be satisfying, and I think that is going to upset a lot of people because George from the beginning has been the I don't want to say anti-Tolkien, but the counterpoint to Tolkien, and openly said it. And openly has said, like, that's why he's
always said it's going to have a bittersweet ending. One thing he did like about Tolkien was how he ended the book with the Shire, the raising of the Shire, how it was burned to the ground.
Yeah.
But they left those out of the movies.
Yeah,
because they wanted a happy Disney ending, basically. Yeah. And I think that's how that. If you think about it, that's kind of how this is. It's like, yay, we saved the city.
I
burned it the fuck down.
Yeah, right. Exactly. It's SpongeBob.
We got rid of Cersei, but holy shit, we just killed everybody.
And I think that's why I think this is going to be unhappy for a lot of people. Is my prediction is that Arya kills Daenerys.
But what if that doesn't even happen, dude? Just
no, Daenerys.
Sit with me here.
Okay.
What if our fantasy ending is like that? Would be such a cinematic way to end this. What if none of that happens? What if Sansa's like, you have fucked us over, Jon, and now we are the Wardens of the North? And what if she just is the Queen of Ashes now, and that is how it ends? There is no assassination. She's just the queen now.
No, because Daenerys wouldn't let Jon go. Like, she would continue to demand his loyalty.
What if he just goes away?
Then she'll take it out of the North. I think that...
what if that happens? What if it is such a tragic ending that so many people would be upset?
I think what's worse... I think, and this in a way will be worse. What happens is Daenerys is killed, but Jon does not take the throne. The North goes back to the North. The North. Well,
I still have my theory that Tyrion is a Targaryen, and that his father was.
Yeah, but that's such a book theory, though. Like
that's not just a book theory.
Yeah, because it's not discussed enough on the show. It's not even hinted at on the show. It's way more hinted at in the book.
Well, sure it is. He said how many times, "You're not my son."
Yeah, but I mean, he's also very blonde in the books too. He's Targaryen blonde in the books.
So his mom's blonde.
Fair enough.
I love that theory because hear me out. Let's say she dies.
Yeah.
I mean, for example, if Jon's the one that does kill her, then that's everyone's prophecy coming true.
Yeah.
Stabbing her in the heart to save the world. That would make a lot of those book nerds happy. And Jon does go away. He runs off to the north, or he goes hang out with Tormund and
yeah.
and Ghost. And what if Tyrion, what if Bran, what if they find out, like, oh shit, by the way, your father was the Mad King. So that means that you have a right to the throne. Sitting on the throne as the king is the final scene in the show. I would love that.
Nah, as funny as that would be, I think bittersweet is going to be, it's going to be, there'll be some moment between Jon and Daenerys that maybe she might be brought around. They'll tease that. But then Arya is going to be Arya Queenslayer.
Right.
It's going to utterly destroy Jon.
Yeah.
I think he does go off back beyond the wall. I think he
So
goes
who takes the throne?
Nobody. I think here's how
What if Gendry? It would be Gendry then, right? He has. If
I
he's a Barth,
he is, and he would be the next one to have a claim if Jon refused.
Yeah.
But I don't think here's how I see it though. Jon goes off beyond the wall. He lives with the wildlings. He belongs with the wildlings. Sansa becomes Lady of Winterfell and rallies the North to stay in the North. They
Right.
are the North. They don't want anything to do with all this shit. The rest of the Seven Kingdoms just completely fall apart because there is no king. There's no
Or
queen.
if they just rule themselves, they don't need.
Sure,
I mean,
that's
going
gonna
to
work well. Yeah, sure, that's gonna work real well. How?
It's just another. Hey, a new show, Game of Thrones. And maybe that's it. Maybe it's just a never-ending cycle.
I think it becomes, you know.
How do you write the end of this? That's what I think no one's going to be happy. I think you're absolutely right.
No,
there's no way out of this.
No, there's not. And I think that is ultimately the point. Ultimately, I think that in the end, in a way, the North wins because they rule themselves.
I hope so.
Sansa is Lady of Winterfell, and the North is the North, and the North remains fairly intact. Jon is beyond the wall with Tormund and Ghost and the Wildlings because he more belongs
Give me that show.
there. Oh yeah. Oh hell
dude,
yeah.
What if he goes to the North and he finds Tormund and all of them, and he finds their body parts all spread out in a big spiral?
That's no, because then that just undoes everything from the Night King.
Yeah,
no.
I'm just saying, like, I'm just saying how terrible of a way this show could end. I'm just throwing ideas.
But
out there.
no narrative sense. Like that's
it would make no sense. But that would be a way for them to tease, like, oh, it's not over.
No, because the whole point of that.
I agree.
Yeah.
I don't think that's gonna happen.
I'm
just throwing ideas out there.
Bad idea.
I think you're right. I think Eric kills her. He hops on the dragon, goes north, and they have adventures with.
I don't think he takes the dragon.
Tormund has a dog.
Nah, I think Drogon dying also has to be part of it.
Yeah. Well, how would they do that?
You're gonna tell me there's the scorpion that was in the Red Keep. Maybe it survived.
True.
Maybe it's intact. Probably not, but it's possible. Maybe. I don't know. That's one I don't have an answer for. But either that or because that could be even.
Or he just flies off.
That's what I'm thinking, is that if she dies, he just kind of goes off and is a dragon in the wild, which is also a frightening thought.
That's honestly, I would love that, because we all know she's gonna have to die for what she did. But who knows? Maybe they flip it on its head and they're like, oh nope, she's alive. But let's say she dies. I hope they don't kill the dragon. I hope he flies off.
Yeah.
And who knows? We get dragons in whatever spinoff show we get that. One of them might take place in the future. Who knows?
You never know.
I don't think you kill off all the dragons.
No, I think I'm okay with Drogon just flying off. I'm okay.
Yeah,
I'm good with that.
He goes off and he figures out how to make more eggs. Maybe you don't need multiple dragons to make eggs. Who knows? Maybe it's what is that? Asexual? Or,
yeah, but they're magical. Whatever. Like they're fine.
Yeah, they're
like
magical
I'm good with
beings. Exactly. I saw a lot of theories about that, like what if there were more dragons that last episode, because in the trailer they show him looking up in the sky, and I thought, hey, there was a big part of the show where we didn't see the dragon. But
yeah, well, he was off, eating sheep and burning up children in a field. We remember that.
Oh yeah, well, remember we saw one flying over Valyria?
Yeah, but you wonder if that was Drogon back when he was... Because remember, that was around the same time that Viserion and Rhaegon were in the dungeon, and she couldn't catch Drogon.
And he was off flying, so it could have been him. It could have been a different dragon.
It's a stretch, but it's possible.
Exactly, yeah. I don't think it was a different dragon. I'm just, hey, that'd be a cool idea. I can't wait, regardless of what you think of the show and how the creators ended it, I can't wait to see what happens with the new series. Completely different characters. The only problem is they're beholden to the future, if that makes sense.
Yeah, but how much? How far back in the past is this, though?
It's either gonna be 1,000 years or 100 years, and that's the whole thing. Is George was smart by basically saying all of the history is written by Masons, who may or may not know the exact time period
Exactly,
of
and
certain things.
yeah, and I mean, look at the same Maester who recorded the secret wedding between Rhaegar and Lyanna also recorded how many shits he had. So I mean,
Exactly.
like these are not trustworthy people because they are people and people are fallible.
Exactly, and I an interview with George, he was talking about. He goes, I like this idea because I'll write something and then go, wait a second, how many what color eyes did I give him? It doesn't really matter. Like, or there's I guess there was a horse in one of his stories that he changed the sex of, not realizing it.
Yeah.
In a later story because it was in heat or whatever. And he was like, this is a way for when we tell the history of the world, it's told through the eyes of the Maesters who might be off a couple hundred years.
Yeah.
So George has in his blog that's not a blog, he has said numerous times, I'm not allowed to call this The Longest Night, but the new series, The Longest Night, I guess that's what time frame it takes place in. Now, in the official HBO release, they call it The Age of Heroes, which is a completely different time frame.
Right. So
I don't know who to trust.
Hey, doesn't that sound like exactly the point he wants to make?
Exactly. And in his blog, he talks about, and if you want to know what any of the spinoffs are about, I suggest you go read my book, and then it shows the Fire and Blood, which I imagine that totally could be its own spinoff. Is the legacy of these Targaryens. They could do an entire thing on the Dance of Dragons, where basically most of the dragons were killed off.
Yeah.
Where it was basically a Targaryen civil war between a bastard Targaryen. Basically, one of the Targaryens legitimized all his bastards, and so it was a fight for the throne.
Oh, that goes well.
Yes, and they all had dragons. So that would be an interesting time frame. Dude, there's a series called Dunk and Egg. Have you seen it?
I've heard of Dunk and Egg. Yeah.
Yes. This is basically the Lost Stars of Game of Thrones.
Yeah, because I remember, because Aegon was the Maester at the Wall.
Yes. Yeah, so this story, the Dunk and Egg, the Hedge Knight, it goes all the way from when Rhaegon Targaryen was born. He was there at Harrenhal that night when it burned down.
Yeah.
It's basically he's basically weaves himself in and out of all of these stories. A lot of people believe that he is why did her name just go blank? Oh my god, why did I just forgot her name.
Who are you looking for?
Brienne of Tarth.
Okay.
A lot of people believe that she is not only her father, but also Hodor's father. Because there's a story that they haven't told yet where he goes to the north and he meets an older lady who he falls in love with. So thinking that's old Nan, who is Hodor's mother.
Interesting.
Yes. So again, it's very contrived or whatever, but I love that. That would be a story on itself where you say, oh, that's the father of Brienne. He ends up becoming what do you call it? What Jaime Lannister was for the king.
The Kingsguard or whatever?
Kingsguard, yeah. So like it goes through all of that. So all the way up to kind of where we start with Game of Thrones, or not too far from there. So yeah, like you could do an entire series on that. And by the way, they have the 3 books, but A Night of the Seven Kingdoms, Mystery Knight, and Hedge Knight. And they're also in a graphic novel form, so if you want to read it like a comic,
oh neat,
it does it as well. So, and yeah, there's also like planned. He has like a few more that he wants to talk about. He wants to do called like the Lord Commander, the Sellsword, the Champion, and the Kingsguard is another series, another set of books that he wants to do set with that. That's his problem. Is he's like, I have this book to finish, but I'm going to do everything else.
Let's talk about the fact that he still has 2 books in the main series yet to finish.
Yeah, he has done like 3 or 4 other books since then. And I saw a ridiculous rumor that I wish was true, but it's not. That and he addressed it immediately. That he had a deal. He had a deal with HBO that was like, you don't release the final 2 books until the show is done because we don't want to spoil it. He's like, this is absurd. He's like, of course that's not true. And I was like, oh man, because that would be great if like after the show is done, they're like, oh yeah, we're releasing the books, one this year and one the next year.
I honestly though, I'm gonna if if the next book comes out in the next year, I'm gonna believe that rumor. Like,
yeah, oh yeah, exactly.
I'm straight up gonna believe it. Like,
yeah, I don't understand. Like, what? I mean, again, we are definitely not one of those people that are like, get it out now. We want it to be out, of course, but we also don't think you should harass the writers.
No,
or,
it's
all those people.
Yeah.
Because we're the same with Patrick's Office. Like, we like, where's the book at? Let's come on, let's go. What's going on?
It's like, I'm working on it. I'm like, okay.
Exactly. Yeah, yeah. We say it in a very loving way.
Yes.
But yeah, it's come on, George. let's hurry. I wonder I wonder what the holdup is. I wonder if it has anything to do with the show, or if it's pressure. Like, obviously he is way busier now than he was before when he. Before the show came out, he wasn't touring and all that other stuff. He wasn't on not Saturday Night Live, but he wasn't on, Conan or something like that.
Right, yeah.
So yeah, he wasn't as popular, doing gigs and stuff. So yeah, I don't know. I hope he does release it soon. Like I said, I've now read Game of Thrones. I want to go into the Clash of Kings. I'm on these 2 other series. It's a fun time. It's a fun time, man. Whew. But yeah, so I think that's it, man. Anything else you want to say about it?
I just, I'm looking forward to Sunday. This was not a moment for me of like, I'll never watch a show again, for 2 reasons. One, I didn't think it was that bad. I didn't think it was like, oh no, this is awful, they ruined everything. I don't. Critiques and everything aside, I don't hate the outcome.
Right. No, man. You have a very logical reason of where you got to where you got. There's so many people out there where I'm just like,
I can't
you're not
going
to watch the last episode because of that.
And that's my other thing. There's 1 episode left. That's it. like I'm just like, I might as well watch the damn thing.
Yeah, or they're like, this is shit writing. I can't. I'm like,
this is
really
the one that always bothers me, and it bothers me every time, even if there's bad writing or anything, or if there are mistakes. The criticism that I can't stand because it's from people who have not even the slightest clue how being a writer works. They say the same thing. Oh, this is lazy. I hate that. I hate that more than anything.
Right. When the most creative thing they've ever done is write a Mother's Day card.
Exactly.
And it's like, what? It's not lazy. It's not when you have more Emmys than any other show of all time that's scripted. Like, obviously they're there for a reason. They earned that reason.
Yeah.
I think it's incredibly dismissive and disrespectful to be like, that they're just, and it's not your story. And that's where I think a lot of people, they get like entitlement.
Yeah.
Same with the Star Wars stuff. It's like, look, if you're not enjoying it, look, you don't have to invest in it anymore.
Yeah, go somewhere else. Like
you don't have to identify with it. It's not you that people. It's just you gotta back away from it if it's not your thing.
That's why my critiques, I try to make them just in terms of in their how does this connect in their story. That's why I make the difference between logical sense and narrative sense. Some things don't make logical sense, and that's fine. But
how they get around, teleporting everywhere.
Yeah,
you have to. Put blinders on for that.
Right. Don't really care. Like, okay, they got from here to there. Well, that was fast. Fine.
Right.
Like, I don't particularly care. Narrative sense, don't care. But they also, just because a character doesn't turn out the way I wanted them to doesn't mean a damn thing, because I'm not writing this. If you want, that's what I challenge all these people who are like, well, I wouldn't have done it this way. Okay, then go write a story and do it your way. I dare you, because they won't do it.
Right.
But that's the thing.
You're absolutely right. I kind of mentioned that earlier. It's like those characters aren't created to be your favorite hero or your favorite story or your favorite character. They're created. It's a story.
Yeah.
And it's not yours. It's theirs to tell. And you can cry up and down that it's fan fiction because it's George R. Martin's story. At some point, it's not. You have to give them some credit for telling this story, that it is an adaptation that they had to run with. And if you're not enjoying it, there are always the books to go to.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I completely agree, man. Oh boy. But yeah, so I'm excited. I'm pumped for next week. I'm optimistic. I know the internet is burning down right now with
and I mean, everybody's going to be sad because this story does not end with and they all lived happily ever after. It doesn't.
Oh yeah, no. If you thought that, you haven't been paying attention.
That's right. This is not going to end the way you think.
Right.
But there's
Was that Ramsey where he waggles the sausage and says that? Yeah, like it's not, and that's the whole idea. Is
yeah.
you
And
got to enjoy the ride. I think we have. I don't want this to sound it's stupid, but maybe we have a better understanding of this because we enjoy wrestling and we see the heel turns.
man, you're not wrong.
Yeah, and we see, and it's like, yes, someone turned to the bad side, and that's okay.
But
yes, there are kids crying in the audience, and I see a lot of people out there acting the same way, like, how could you do this to my character? It's like, just enjoy the ride. It's a show.
Right, because it makes sense. And you're right. It's such a bizarre parallel, but these things have to make narrative sense.
Yeah, Hulk Hogan turning to the NWO was one of the greatest things to happen in wrestling.
Yes.
If you want to get upset about something, get upset about some of the behind-the-scenes stuff that he said and done.
Right.
But when he turned to the NWO, that was one of the greatest moments ever.
Yeah.
And you have to divorce yourself from it a little bit and just enjoy it as a show. And I'm sorry you named your kid Khaleesi. Like maybe she'll grow up and be like, hey, that was a badass character, and she was a strong female character.
Yeah.
Regardless of what happened at the end, she's a strong mother. She's strong as hell.
Yeah. No kidding.
So it's, even if she goes good or bad, it's still a good character. But yeah, I don't know. I think people get, what's the phrase? They get lost in the sauce.
Yeah. Well, and my biggest thing is, people claim that everything is stale and this and that, and then something like Game of Thrones comes along where they're like, no, this is a little more grounded. This is a little more like how things would happen. And people say they love it up until it ends exactly the way it's going to end, and they're going to get pissy because they didn't get their happily ever after, which they were never going to get anyway.
Yep. You're absolutely right. And you've talked about how people were going to be upset if they didn't run into each other at the end there with Jamie and, what's his name? I forget his name.
Euron, yeah.
Euron, yeah. People would have been upset if he didn't run into each other. They got upset that they did run into each other. They screamed plot armor, but then they remember Ned got his head chopped off. They hate the way Cersei and Jaime died because it was anticlimactic. Well, I mean, we had fetuses stabbed before too, in very tragic ways of characters just abruptly dying.
Yeah.
Not everyone's going to be able to get the happy ever after and run out of the castle. And I love that. I love the fact that the story started with them pushing a boy out of the tower and a tower falling on them.
Agreed. Yes. The symbolism there was magnificent.
It was fantastic. And Jamie, as much as we saw his character growth, so many people are upset because they think they destroyed his character. How many people have you seen who have turned and done the right thing, but for whatever reason, they are addicted to something and they fall right back into it? And no matter
how do you go back to that? Why did you go back to that person? Don't you see how poisoned they are?
Exactly.
Yes, but there's something there that you can't explain. And they
can't just fight against it. And that's, if you've never seen that or experienced that, you go outside. Welcome to the real world. That happens.
Yeah, and he was, especially because he was trying so hard to save her.
He was.
And it didn't work. And he scrambled at the end so hard. That's where you see the difference. She stood and wept because she knew she was beaten. Because everything that she had plotted and planned, she had always come out on top. And then when
she was a frightened, they say that the after the credits, they're like at the very end of it, she was just a frightened girl. That she went from this, as much as she was this powerful queen or whatever. At the very end, she was just weeping. And that's how it happens. That's real.
Yeah, because it was quite literally all crashing down on her.
Yeah,
and Jamie,
I like that.
Jamie was true to himself of I have to do this. I have to be the one who does the things. That's why he was the one that pushed Bran out the window. He has to do what it is to keep her safe because of his love. He has to do this. And then when he hits a wall, literally again, he completely just kind of falls apart because he can't.
That's how he wanted to die.
Yeah.
I think he even said that at some point.
Yeah, in the arms of the woman I love. That was what he said. And that was how he died. I hope Tyrion's that lucky for his sake, because he wanted to die in a badass way, I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah.
But that's what's gonna suck, is I imagine he's going to live and run. I think he and Davos would make an interesting pairing. to get away.
Right. Oh yeah.
Because I think Davos went with John. I think he went back to the north and was just like, nope, I'll have no parts of this. And he was gone.
See, that's the thing is, we saw the morality with those two characters, and it makes sense. But then you just see everyone else kind of go crazy. I wish there was more episodes and more time. I don't know how they're gonna wrap this up in one episode.
There'll definitely be some of that. There'll be John, just laying into people. What is the matter with you? How dare you? And they'll be defending themselves. They'll be saying, yeah, but it's King's Landing. Remember what they did to Ned and this and that. They deserved it, blah, blah, blah. And that's why he's going to go beyond the wall. Because he can't look at the Northmen anymore and not see that. That's what he's going to think of every time. And he's going to say the city. He's going to say, I don't want any part of this. And he's going to check out. He's going all the way north. Yeah. But that's what Bittersweet's going to be. He's going to live, and he's going to live a not awful life, but it's not going to be with his family because he can't be in the north anymore. There's no way. Yeah. I don't know what happens to Arya. Does she kill Daenerys and then get eaten by Drogon? Maybe. I worry about that. Like, what's that going to cost? Yeah. But because I think that's your Song of Ice and Fire. She's killed the ice, now she has to kill the fire. Yeah. But, so I don't know. I think the North stays the North. If you are in the North, as of now, you're fine. Sansa's fine, Bran's fine. Like, they will live on. But everybody else, flip a coin.
Yeah, where do you go with this? And, I saw, it might have been in the after credits thing. I forgot where I'm getting this. Or maybe I was talking to a friend. I forget. But I do like that the beginning of the season, we saw the threat of the ice. Yeah. And now we saw the threat of the fire. Yeah. And I like that. I like that we got both of those in the same season. Yeah. There's not too much else to that. I thought that was a cool thing that someone observed. I was like, that's actually a really awesome thing. Yeah. I don't know, man. They make it look so Darth Vader in the next one, where she is standing as the Emperor.
Well, I mean, that's she is now the Mad Queen. We may not, whether you liked it or you didn't, that's what you get. There is no coming back. She's done. Like, that's it. Yeah. So no, there's no redemption here. She dies at the end of this. Yeah. She has to, or I mean, maybe she doesn't. Maybe she lives. That's my thing though. Because if there was another season or even another couple episodes, I would say no, she's not going to die right away because she has to go to war with the North. Because Jon, for as much as he may be just absolutely repulsed by the Northmen's attitude, there's still a threat to them. There's still a threat to his family in the North, and so now he has to deal with this. And he and Daenerys are going to go to war now because she.
Or what if?
Go for it.
And hear me out. Hear me out. What if, so long ago, when she was pregnant and she thought she was having a baby, and then she passed out, and they said the baby died in childbirth? What if that baby named Luke comes back?
I swear to God.
3 years from now in a new show, where Jon Snow guides him to kill his mother.
He'll be 5 at that point, though.
I guess you're right. Maybe like 17 years down the road. An old man Johnson. Like, it's Star Wars. It's straight up Star Wars. Like, it's almost to a T Star Wars. Oh man.
Old Snow. Like this.
Exactly. Yeah. Or it's Tormund. Let me tell you a story.
God, he and Tormund. Could you imagine him and Tormund raising a kid? Like,
oh, it would be fantastic. It would be fantastic.
I'm just glad that they live, because they have to. Because I'm sure their story is done. They're beyond the wall. Their story is finished.
I do hope that one of these spinoff shows is set beyond this show.
Yeah, I like that.
Like, prequels are great and all, but they always have the problem of, we know the future. We know where this is going to end. And yes, you could set it 100 or 1,000 years before this, and the character's journey is important. I get that. I want to know what happens past. Just like the Star Wars stuff. I'm glad we're getting a prequel series somewhere set, probably in KOTOR. I want to know what happens afterwards.
I love that though, because it's not so beholden to the future. Because these are characters from so many generations past that you don't know what happens. Yeah, you know what happens
it's
1,000 years from now, but
yeah. Well, I guess if it's set at least 150 years prior, 100 years prior, we'll at least have dragons. I guess that's what I was like. I still want magic in the world. I still want all of that in the world. And depending on where you set it, it's not going to be there. It's just going to be like a medieval fantasy.
True.
Where I want some of the magic and stuff. But yeah, I don't know. I want to see moving forward. Like I want to show sets past this to see what happens. Even though most of all the characters we care about are dead.
Yeah.
And it would basically be like the combat kids from Mortal Kombat at this point. At that point, like, oh, you're a Stark, okay. And that was the other thing I was going to mention a long time ago. We're going to be wrapping up soon, but Bran, in the book that I was reading, the World of Fire and Ice, and the Fire and Blood that I have, how it's written by maesters, and they talk about how unrealistic it is that someone named Bran the Builder built all of these things. Like, he built Winterfell, he built the Wall, he helped build a lot of the other places in Westeros.
Things that would have taken
almost impossible that is.
Yeah, because it would have taken generations for any one of those to be built.
Yes, and they note that. So I'm curious how they tackle that and if they show some of that in the past. And I love how Bran says, I live more in the past nowadays. What if we see some of that in the prequel show? What if someone hears their name and turns around?
Yeah.
Or little things are moved around and it's like, wait a second, is that Bran fucking with us? I don't know. I'm excited. We've said this before. We are in the golden age of television right now. It's not a better time to be watching television.
True.
Be it these applications or whatever. In the next few years, we are going to have some of the biggest fantasies series on television. And I can't wait, dude. The Witcher, Star Wars, Game of Thrones, Wheel of Time,
Lord of the Rings.
We're gonna get a new Dune movie, which hopefully does it justice. And it's not
I think it will. I'm excited about it because it's Villeneuve, and I trust him. I liked the second Blade Runner, so.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So I don't know, man. I'm excited for this. Yeah, man. I don't know. You should pick up Way of the Kings or something. I think it'd be cool to talk about.
I'll work on that. I've got my library just got in Master and Apprentice, so I'm gonna read that.
Oh,
next.
nice. There you go. Oh yeah. It's a good one. The Qui-Gon Jinn story.
Yeah.
Cool. All right, dude. I think that's gonna wrap it up. We'll be back next week. We'll talk about the final Game of Thrones final. So I'm sure most of the episode will be that. Kind of, who knows what kind of news will come out between now and then.
Yeah.
Make sure you go to our YouTube, We Geek Podcast, Twitter at We Geek Podcast. Go to we are on Spotify, we're on Apple Podcasts, Google. Make sure wegeekpodcast@gmail.com if you want to send us a question. Our Facebook group. And yeah, we'll be back next week. Captain.